Steel drops of water fell on the floor, as if time had decided to stop for a moment. People could barely stay on their feet, fighting the invisible enemy of fatigue, not having any idea how to gather the last strength and continue the journey. Some of them fell without a drop of strength like leaves in autumn. They couldn't even count how many of them didn't have the strength to stay conscious. The threat lay in the fact that at such a rate, there might not be any forces left at all. Their only hope was faith in the Empire, in its indomitable power. Beside them was Byrne, a mighty hero, a true warrior of light. He was synonymous with strength and courage, ready to face any danger. His mission is to calm the people, prevent panic and disorder. Initially, 74 soldiers, united by a common goal, took part in the campaign. But now, only 43 unconquered spirits remain in the fight. The main thing is not the loss, but the fact that the fire of life still burns in the hearts of 43 soldiers. Despite all the trials, they continue to fight with all their devotion. Their courage and unwavering will to win is an example to follow. They simply could not protect 31 comrades. Such was the bitter truth of this war. They were ready for anything, because they were in one of the 7 dungeons of great evil, in the very core of antiquity, where the past merged with the present. Looking ahead, they faced the future, unknown and dangerous. In front of them lay a giant gate that stood as a monument of challenge. The gate, impressive with its mighty dimensions, was a challenge in itself. Behind these gates lay an unknown that troubled their hearts. Finally, this moment has come. They have reached the end of the core of antiquity, the end point of an adventure burdened with loss but full of hope, a place where an immeasurable amount of treasures, stories, and legends were kept. Perhaps among these treasures, there were 36 masterpieces created by mankind throughout its history. Here, among the darkness and riches, the boss was hiding, the last obstacle on their way. Byrne immediately gave the order, everyone to take their positions, ready for battle. For tanks and swordsmen, to move forward, to take on the blows of the enemy. Mages were ordered to illuminate the area so that everyone would have excellent visibility and readiness for battle. The assault has stopped and the mages are trying to light up the area to provide a better view. They notice a large eye staring at them from the darkness like a beacon in the night. Byrne clutches his sword, preparing to meet the unknown, his heart beating in anticipation. A giant mouth opens before them, the teeth of which are sharp as razors, promising danger. Suddenly shouts are heard all around. "We must run, he cannot be defeated." In the Eater's dream, a group of brave men arrived, but they resisted with dignity. The skeleton reports to the Eater. The Devourer cannot understand whether he understood the situation correctly. In front of him are both ordinary people and his own body. This uncertainty leads him to ask Patrick to calm down, even though it's not so easy to calm down after something like this. It's hard to find peace after such events, when the dungeon boss is awakened by unexpected guests. All he could muster was to bow before them, and the people, frightened, ran away, mistakenly thinking that he would eat them. Renie is once again fascinated by the action of the Eater, looking at him without hiding her emotions, as if she were looking at the hero of her story. The Eater is much larger than Renie, and looks like a monster compared to the gentle girl. Impressions from the Eater's not the best discipline leave the skeleton unsatisfied. The situation takes on an ironic undertone when power and vulnerability are intertwined so unexpectedly. This moment becomes decisive, where each character is revealed in a new unexpected way, creating a deeper story of courage, fear, and hope. He is also called Patrick, a name that sounds in the midst of darkness as a symbol of hope. The fate of the dungeon rests on the shoulders of 3 heroes, but Patrick is most worried about the future of this place. One of the 7 dungeons of the great evil, the core of the ancients, became a challenge that humanity never hoped to overcome. Most of the dungeon raids ended with the humans winning, so it was recorded in all the stories. The positions of monsters always ready to block people's way seem completely unfair. Able to attack at any moment, they become less powerful with each new war. In a world where dungeons appear incessantly, their uniformity becomes a weakness in the face of the human spirit. However, there are exceptions, dungeons that humanity is unable to conquer. Among all the dungeons of the great evil, the ancient core is considered an overwhelming task for humans. It stands as the most difficult demonic challenge among known dungeons. In its depths live dozens of alien creatures guarding the dungeons. The traders guard 3 crossroads, each of which is a challenge in itself. These creatures are not just guardians, they are part of the ancient magic that fuels the core itself. In the face of such power, the 3 heroes will have to join forces and find a common goal. In their hands lies not only the fate of the dungeon, but also the future of all humanity, which puts a huge responsibility before them. The homunculus guarding the red road on the left stands like an invincible sentinel. Skilled and nimble, Renie's blade mate is a key protector of her mistress. The skeleton, sentinel of the blue road in the midst of death, faithfully serves Patrick, becoming a symbol of impenetrable defense. And this impregnable fortress is dominated by the swallow monster, which appears in the first chapter of this book. This mystery is revealed when the book is read aloud, closing the circle of the story. Renie hugs the book, realizing the truth Swallow has revealed to humanity. The distribution of such books among people has dramatically increased the number of those who seek to be in the dungeon. Dungeon management requires not only strength, but also cunning to remain an unfathomable mystery. The little bit of truth presented in the book made people think they knew how things worked. This little book, even if it was half made up, attracted people like the light of butterflies. A crowd that Swallow hadn't expected rushed to her, eager for knowledge. Among 74 people, only a few were able to resist the battle against 116 black tentacles. The cost of each battle turned out to be extremely high, demanding great sacrifices. Renie could handle them expertly without leaving any trace of a struggle. The monster began to release its energy, turning into something alive, and out of the black darkness appeared the human hand of a young boy. Alive, inhabiting the monster, his hand rested gently on Renie's head, comforting her like a gentle breath of wind. Renie's cheeks immediately blushed, as if the morning sun paints colors in the sky. Petrick reminds that time should not be lost, because the conference is on the agenda, not entertainment. "Oh, you're all so cute, I'm going to have cavities soon," Petrick jokes, finding joy in every moment. "It's not just the teeth that rot, but the head too," he continues, emphasizing the effects of overindulgence. "And boss, if you're going to change your body, do it gently. The last time you stroked Renie with your 6-fingered hands? Last time when I saw your 40 teeth, your bright smile and words about a successful transformation gave me goosebumps." To hell with all this, he thinks, trying to get rid of the duties of the dungeon gatekeeper as soon as possible. Gathered at the table, they get down to business, discussing the invasion of people through the right road. The problem is that the master of the 116 black tentacles is seriously injured, but the regeneration of the tentacles is faster than Renie thought. Verdict: wait a little longer, and if the situation does not improve, find a replacement for the gatekeeper. Petrick also planned to resign, but when he raised the issue with his boss, he did not receive an answer. The human path is now only through the right path, which is a new challenge for dungeon defense. People are probably already forming new teams, actively using communication magic similar to telepathy. It's a new level of interaction and challenge for the dungeon, forcing its denizens to adapt to an ever-changing world. Alive, inhabiting the monster, his hand rested gently on Renie's head, comforting her like a gentle breath of wind. Renie's cheeks immediately blushed, as if the morning sun paints colors in the sky. Petrick reminds that time should not be lost, because the conference is on the agenda, not entertainment. "Oh, you're all so cute, I'm going to have cavities soon," Petrick jokes, finding joy in every moment. "It's not just the teeth that rot, but the head too," he continues, emphasizing the effects of overindulgence. "And boss, if you're going to change your body, do it gently. The last time you stroked Renie with your 6-fingered hands, last time when I saw your 40 teeth, your bright smile and words about a successful transformation gave me goosebumps." To hell with all this, he thinks, trying to get rid of the duties of the dungeon gatekeeper as soon as possible. Gathered at the table, they get down to business, discussing the invasion of people through the right road. The problem is that the master of the 116 black tentacles is seriously injured, but the regeneration of the tentacles is faster than Renie thought. Verdict: wait a little longer, and if the situation does not improve, find a replacement for the gatekeeper. Petrick also planned to resign, but when he raised the issue with his boss, he did not receive an answer. The human path is now only through the right path, which is a new challenge for dungeon defense. People are probably already forming new teams, actively using communication magic similar to telepathy. It's a new level of interaction and challenge for the dungeon, forcing its denizens to adapt to an ever-changing world. There are already swords like this in the vault, including the arena blade, which is also one of the 36 masterpieces. People have good weapons, which increases the value of such artifacts. It is impossible to give the sword to the people standing at the entrance, as this will lead to repeated problems. It is decided that the sword should remain with the boss, but he refuses to take it, reminding Petrick that he can keep it himself. Petrick's joy knows no bounds because of such a decision. The ancient core is inhabited by terrifying creatures, including a homunculus maid and a giant ancient monster. Arena, the only conscience of the dungeon, and Master Petrick are its protectors. The heroes face the question of the distribution of income from the loot. It was decided, as always, to take away everything valuable and use the unnecessary as bait for the next groups of researchers. Arena will take care of the children, ensuring their future. Since the monsters cannot use magic weapons, it is decided to remove the magic stones from it and sell it. These stones can be worth a lot of money, which the commander agrees to. It remains to be decided how they will get to the point of sale to sell the stones. This plan opens up new opportunities for the heroes, not only in terms of enrichment, but also in terms of further defense of the dungeon, adding another layer of intrigue to the story. At the heart of the adventure is born an idea that makes hearts tremble with shock. the idea of VGA via a morning trip to the village to start a trade. Their companion faces an unusual difficulty. He cannot easily transform into a human, adding a touch of mystery to the story. After long discussions, the heroes reach a consensus, which is not accepted by everyone with enthusiasm, but is recognized as a necessity. He, with hope in his voice, asks for a small but important request, to take treats with him on the way back, as a symbol of the small joys of life. You don't often get the chance to visit a village, so every moment there is a real treasure. The first steps in the homeland of the Arena cause a storm of emotions, from admiration to nostalgia. Her gaze, thrown at the mysterious entrance to the cave, promises a return full of adventure and unspeakable finds. Entering the pawn shop, the appraiser examines the stones with professionalism, but notes with sadness that he will not be able to purchase them now. Amidst the silence of the pawn shop, Renie wonders, why is it impossible to buy these stones if their quality is undeniable? However, the solution lies not on the surface, but in the complex circumstances surrounding this story. The master pulls out a stone from under the table, which shows that even ordinary people can achieve the incredible, but only through hard work. The stones brought by Arena shine with unparalleled beauty, worthy only of the highest magical powers. The capital jeweler, bound by pacts with the imperial court, has the right to dispose of such stones as if they were part of ancient magic. The greatness of these stones lies not only in their beauty, but also in their ability to retain the power of ancient spells. Yes, each stone is a key to unexplored mysteries that await those who can discover their true nature and place in the grand scheme of the universe. Despite the great distance, the road leads to the majestic tower, where they must go. Arena has doubts about going to the tower, but the capital and the Council of Svalov's master have other plans for her. She goes on a journey, exchanging parting words with a jeweler who has become her friend. The jeweler notices a stone on the table, forgotten by Arena, and hurries to inform her of the forgetfulness. Shouting across the distance, he tries to stop her, exclaiming about the forgotten stone. Upon returning, Arena explains that she left the stone as a tip, showing her generosity. The Tower of the Wing Magicians impresses with its monumentality, towering over the city as a symbol of ancient power. Arriving at the entrance to the tower, Arena prepares to meet with the head to sell her stones. She is escorted to the office where the meeting is to take place. The office of the head of the Tower of Magicians is located at the very top and resembles the structure of a dungeon. Entering the office of the head, Arena is greeted with warmth and a smile, making the atmosphere welcoming. She immediately felt that this girl possessed an unusually large supply of mana, unusual for an ordinary person. At first, the head of the tower showed no interest in meeting the child, but changed his mind after learning about the stones. All hopes were placed on the fact that the stones brought by the Arena would be of high quality. This case became a test not only for Arena, but also for the head of the tower, because the rare stones could change their future. Pouring the rocks out of the bag in front of the chapter, Arena forces her to check them out for herself, causing a wave of surprise. Disbelieving her own eyes, the head of the tower sees A-class stones in front of her, which causes her confusion and admiration. In amazement, she asks how such a young girl can possess stones of the highest quality, a real treasure. The question arises about the origin of Arena, because her peculiarity, silver hair, causes associations with one of the great families of the Empire. The chapter realizes that the girl could have run away from home, taking the stones with her, which only adds intrigue to the story. The first thought that comes to the head is that Arena, despite her young age, may not be aware of the true value of the stones. By offering a price of 50 ounces of gold, the head relies on Arena's ignorance, but she, calculating in her head, rejects the offer as an attempt to deceive. Arena warns the chapter that any attempt to trick her will end badly, showing her determination and knowledge. The head realizes that the girl is not a simple person, because she knows exactly what she wants and is ready to protect her interests. In the end, the head admits that the guild does not have enough funds to buy all the stones, but is willing to buy some. An offer of 2,000 ounces of gold for a portion of the stones appears to be all the guild has to offer, opening up new negotiating opportunities for the Arena. This series of events enhances intrigue and character development by showing their personalities and motivations, and also adds depth to the narrative, making it more engaging for the audience. Arena understands that leftover stones can be exchanged for something of value, judging it as a reasonable trade. The guild mistress invites her to visit the vault to show what items can be exchanged for stones. Access to the vault is usually restricted, but an exception is made for the Arena, emphasizing its special position. In the vault, she is presented with a 4-carat diamond tiara, decorated with magical stones which are valuable to magicians. A living black pearl that emits a warning sound when poison approaches demonstrates a high level of alchemy. The mention of alchemy surprises Arena, opening her up to new knowledge about this ancient form of art. The guild mistress ponders Arena's reaction to alchemy, pondering her ambiguity. At the end, she expresses the opinion that alchemy, despite its achievements, is considered a dangerous and unacceptable science. However, there is one more item capable of causing astonishment in the arena, emphasizing the magical atmosphere of the vault. This fragment of the text reveals the fascinating world of magical items and alchemy, bringing attention to detail and interaction. In the heart of the red stone lies the eternal spark of love, framed by legends that this diamond is the key to transforming the most intimate feelings into living reality. The sparkling diamond, exquisite and full of charm, is the very embodiment of love that connects hearts. When a drop of magical mana fuses with this gem under the chosen one's gaze, the ancient spirit that lives in the depths of the stone weaves an unbreakable crown of love, promising eternity to their union. Renie, enveloped in a wave of disbelief and delight, cannot contain her delight, which breaks all the boundaries of understanding. With an explosion of emotions and exclamations, she vows to take this symbol of love without delay. The name of a loved one lives in her heart, whom she loves infinitely, is ready to do anything for their happiness. But this magical stone can become a source of trials, capable of dragging even the emperor into the deceptive depths of desires. Establishing the value of such a relic, we face the immensity of its influence, where value is intertwined with fate. Fascinated by an amazing phenomenon, the girl loses her ability to think clearly, trying to express the inexpressible. In front of her head, she reveals the secret, as if the magic itself suggests the words to her. Words escape Renie, leaving her confused as to where this ability came from. With the support of the newly received funds, she seeks to negotiate an exchange, a rare piece of jewelry for a precious diamond. Anxiety echoes in the voice of the assistant, who anxiously asks the head about the fate of the diamond. "Do you realize the consequences of its influence?" emphasizes the assistant, hinting at a potential danger. The head is mesmerized by the grandeur and beauty of the precious stones, clouding its judgment. Despite the risk to the girl's life, she is unable to refuse the temptation that the diamond carried. All this causes concern among those around who witness the danger hovering in the air. The fate of the diamond remains uncertain, but its allure and potential threat have already changed the course of history. She will still die as soon as she is free, and the beloved husband of the unfortunate girl will also follow her without leaving any traces. Such a sad fate is predicted by the owner of the precious stone. This diamond carries such a threat. Its magic is a vow of eternal separation and oblivion. One of the family's dungeons, which harbors a great evil, has a castle that has suffered serious damage, as if it senses impending doom. It looks like evil itself has incarnated in these walls, the hairdresser thinks, carefully cutting his hair as if trying to cut off the strands of sinister fate. The little girl, making her unique hairstyle, managed to create a special image that radiated originality and creativity. The bosses of the dungeon of the castle belonging to Elizabeth Bathory hid secrets that could amaze anyone with their mysticism and history. Even if she made mistakes during the haircut, there was confidence that the beauty of a person does not depend on the hairstyle, because true beauty does not need decorations. Sometimes she was even envious because she considered herself a homunculus, a mysterious being with something supernatural and unknowable. Her beautiful face never aged, keeping freshness and beauty, as if she had the secret of eternal youth. Miss Bathory also looked very young, her skin even fairer than Renee's, creating an aura of mystery and mystery. She used a great deal of blood to maintain her beauty, revealing the grisly secrets of her youth. The girl asked Miss Bathory how she thought Renie looked, trying to understand the secret of her beauty. "Of course, she is the most charming person among those I have seen recently," answered Miss Bathory, emphasizing the uniqueness and excellence of Renie. Miss Bathory believed her, demonstrating her belief in inner and outer beauty that could overshadow any flaws or advantages. The atmosphere of the mysterious castle of Elizabeth Bathory, where the line between reality and myth becomes invisible. No one will dare to refuse such a beautiful and charming girl, whose appearance and charisma can bewitch at first glance. By the way, the question arose as to whom she so diligently beautifies, forcing others to think about the hidden reasons for her self-care. Does she perhaps not want to confess her feelings to someone, keeping a secret in her heart that has been looking for a way out for a long time? Holding a stone in her hands, which is a symbol of her hope, she confesses that she dreams of confessing her love, opening her soul to an unknown future. Miss Bathory was very surprised, not expecting such a turn of events, thinking that it was just a joke. But the reality turned out to be different. It turns out that Renie dreams of confessing his feelings to Mistress Svalova, which was a real surprise for everyone who knows her. This confession put Miss Bathory in a stupor, who could not believe that the girl was serious about such a step. At first it seemed to her that the girl was just joking with her, but the reality turned out to be completely different and much more serious. But it was not a joke. Today she is going to open her heart to Mistress, risking everything for the opportunity to express his feelings. Not understanding what exactly he did to the hostess, the Mist begins to list his shortcomings, trying to find an explanation for her displeasure. He really had very few good qualities. For example, it was unreliable, which usually turns most people off. But all this caused only love in Renie, as if her feelings found beauty precisely in his imperfections. I wonder how such a small and beautiful girl could like such a man, asked Miss, not finding an answer. She knew all this, but her heart was still drawn to Slavo, as if invisible threads connected them despite all the obstacles. Her love knew no bounds. It grew and strengthened every day, turning into a powerful whirlpool of feelings. She really liked him very much, and this confession sounded from her lips with special force and sincerity. She really liked him. Her heart beat faster with every thought of him, filling her soul with warmth and light. Miss couldn't say anything more than to wish her luck, even though deep down she felt she deserved more. A love that would stand the test of time. Renie will definitely be able to do everything, but she will be able to do what she wants, she convinced herself, finding the strength to believe and dream. After all, she has a stone of love in her hands, which carries with it a lot of unknowns. This artifact was a symbol of her hopes for the future. The capital of the empire, Riatse, was impressive with its beauty and grandeur, witnessing the stories of many destinies. The Joint Raid Command Center is a place where the bravest hearts gathered, ready to defend the world. All talks and reports indicated that Bern Hestalag's hero team was probably wiped out. This news became a cold shower for all who hoped for victory. What could that mean? VDJ, a question that hung in the air, leaving room for guesses and theories. This uncertainty spurred action, prompting the search for the truth behind the mystery of the team's disappearance. Hearts full of anxiety and hope did not give up in the face of the unknown, believing that the dawn would reveal all the answers. He had heard earlier that they had easily won against the enemy. These news ignited hope and courage in hearts. The bodies have not yet been found, so there can be no verdict. Mystical silence envelops this mystery, keeping numerous mysteries within it. No one believes that Bern could have died from some monsters. His courage and strength were legendary, inspiring admiration and trust. After all, the core of antiquity is not a confusing and small dungeon, but it keeps ancient secrets waiting for brave people who can solve them. They'll either come in a day or never come back. This mystery attracts travelers, despite the dangers. But they have not received any news for 2 days. Silence falls like a heavy veil on the hearts of those waiting. Bern is probably already dead. Everyone thinks that this is what happened, but a spark of hope smolders in everyone's soul. There is one more question. What happened to the sword of the Stalga family? This weapon is not just an instrument of war, but a symbol of honor and greatness. After the detachment penetrated the core of antiquity, communication was lost, and no one can learn about the fate of the sword and its owners. No one can take away the 14th masterpiece, Tannabella, now. This mission requires not only courage, but also wisdom. It was a very valuable sword to all who knew of its existence. His story is intertwined with the destinies of many heroes. But no one can do anything now, because even Bern's group could not get through the core of antiquity. It is important not to increase the number of victims. It is better to abandon the dangerous plan. If Bern is fighting a boss, chances are the boss is seriously wounded. This battle will become a legend that will inspire generations to come. Even during their conversation, the boss regenerates and everything around seems to change. The only chance is to end it quickly before it fully regains its strength. The Imperial family has already lost its favorite hero and one of the 36 masterpieces. If the second raid fails, the consequences will be unpredictable. If everything remains as it is inevitable that everyone will die, and disobedience to the Imperial family will lead to even greater victims. VDGA echoed among the worried voices. Also, if Bern couldn't inflict a single wound on the ancient core boss, and the group didn't manage to damage the dungeon, they thought about the futility of their efforts. It doesn't matter how many groups they send on a raid, the core of antiquity will remain unconquered, they stated with disappointment. It was the last verdict which caused indignation among all present. The atmosphere in the hall intensified. Entering the hall, a person appeared, a moment that promised changes or new challenges. I think it is quite possible to do it, he said, bringing hope to the despairing listeners. The Imperial magical community entered the hall, bringing a sense of tension and anticipation. Everyone must know from whom they receive assignments, emphasized the Imperial magical community, the Third Eye. Their presence meant that it was time to pay for sins, reminding us of responsibility and consequences. How stupid they acted, losing a precious hero and also leaving a masterpiece in the center of the dungeon. Self-criticism echoed among the gathering. With their heads down, all members of the meeting remained silent, feeling the burden of guilt and failure. Everyone cooled down from the realization of how much we were wrong. Understanding mistakes has become a difficult test. His Majesty was offered a solution that could save their miserable souls. A spark of hope for salvation appeared. This proposal shed light on the possibility of correcting mistakes and restoring honor to the imperial family. To go again into the core of antiquity, where time disappears in invisible bursts of space and ancient secrets mysteriously weave their threads. Nephrim, a wise and courageous explorer, gathered his team to go on the most dangerous expedition of his life. The memories of Byrne, who had once been as brave as they were, now only screamed in the boundless spaces of his wasted mind. Nephrim has too many problems, thinks one team member, surveying the ruins of its former glory. However, the team leader insists this is not a failure, but only a new stage of achievement. The question on everyone's mind is, why couldn't Byrne and his group get out of the core of antiquity? Why should we be different? The answers are hidden in the tangled corridors of time, where wisdom and danger are intertwined in an inextricable knot. Weakness is not our destiny, they admit, gathering their will for a new challenge. Amidst solving mysteries and perils, they realize we are only at the beginning of a path that will lead us to true revelation. The blow of Byrne's group was only a prelude to the grand challenge to come. And the only disaster is the lack of a common direction and goal, which is the key to survival. He who never takes a risk never truly succeeds, is their promise as they make their way through the darkness. Meanwhile, in the dungeons where the shadows tell ancient legends, something evil is approaching. The Devourer feels restlessness, as before a storm approaching with unusual force. And only time will tell if they can survive this ordeal, or if they will be on the path to their own destruction. Sneezing, he flies several meters into the air. Is this infection walking? It was always difficult for him to wake up and get up, but no one knew when people might attack them. So Patrick scolds him again if he delays the patrol. He strongly inspires fear, although he is only made of bones. Maybe bones is all fear. It is probably worth giving up additional problems and waking up. Last time people invaded through a polluted path. Without it, it would be good to start your patrol. Gatekeeper Master 16, a tentacle. If he could be helped in any way, he would not be able to pass it, but it is necessary to move on. Manager of the 5th team of anthropophages. If the eater's memory fails, the anthropophagus regenerates itself as long as it has a main body and nutrients. The body as a whole can even not be interfered with. This process will pass, continuing its patrol, it goes. He sighed, feeling a heaviness in his heart, but knowing that he must continue with his mission. Overcoming his inner doubts, he stepped forward, ready for any challenge that might come his way. As he traveled through the darkness, he looked for signs of danger, ready to meet it face to face. Every now and then he stopped to listen to the world around him, looking for any sounds or movements that might seem suspicious. His soul was filled with courage and determination to fight evil and protect those who needed his help. The night passed slowly, but he did not lose hope and continued his patrol with indomitable willpower. His mission is not only a duty but also a vocation, and he is ready to go to the end of the world to protect those he loves and respects. Seems like one less problem, but the main problem is the destroyed rooms from the 1st to the 4th. This needs to be settled with Patrick. He decides to deal with the rest later, and for now he will rest, looking only at the dirty path in the 5th room. But this is already becoming too lazy for him. Patrick will understand him, and his line will get the better of him. A sword appears behind him, attracting his attention. The words are heard from the darkness. Ah, you pitiful people. If you decide to invade the dungeon alive, the whole world is 100% not going to get out. Then, recognizing Mistress Svalova, she asks for his forgiveness because she did not expect to see him here. Just defends his way early. It seemed to her that people were walking, stepping on the dungeon again. She brings hundreds of forgiveness to the hostess. Uncertain about the future, he felt the burden of responsibility but knew he could not back down. Taking stock of the previous night, he analyzed each step and decided what needed to be done next. Without losing his bee, he carefully watched for every sign that could indicate danger. For him, it was not just a job but a challenge that demanded his full attention and dedication. Prepared for any possible obstacle, he continued his patrol with metropolitan determination. Feeling the heat under the sun, he did not stop, continuing his mission without delay. Every moment was important, and he found the strength in his inner destiny to get through it. While patrolling the dungeons, he found himself in the middle of a struggle between light and darkness. But his will was unshakable, and he continued forward, knowing that this was the only way to victory. Persuading him to forgive her again and again, she watched the host's expression. This made the hostess a little scared because he did not understand that such an important thing could be in her words. In general, it is interesting where she was going. Indeed, she seemed mysterious and unpredictable. Being next to the master, she inserted her word, and he felt that she was trying to draw his attention to him. The master immediately guessed that some important event was planned because she took off her maid's uniform and he began to worry. She recognized that events were really important, and he understood that she needed support. Renie asks that the owner give her even a drop of his attention. She feels abandoned and lonely. With a hint of sarcasm, he replies, "Only for your release," implying that she is extremely interested in his attention. She made tea and asked him out, trying to mend the relationship. A cup of tea poured into a mug looked like a symbol of their possible agreement and mutual understanding. In order to taste and say something to the hostess, she chose this very place, which only she knew about. But now this place was known to him as well. She watched him with rapt eyes, eager to see his reaction. The mistress's hand was trembling, and there was no place in his head except thoughts of how to avoid being released. 80 years have passed since the hostess took him to the dungeon, and he remembered that time well. Looking into the cup and seeing his reflection, memories appeared in his head again. 80 years ago, there was a fashion for raids, and more than 1,000 dungeons were destroyed. The number of people who penetrated the core of antiquity exceeded several thousand. From that time, Renie got a nickname, and she earned it with her persistent hard work. The hostess then worked really well and tried to keep the place in pristine condition. With a mysterious expression on her face, she turned to the host, hoping that he understood the importance of this moment. The hostess was convinced that he would remember this day for a long time, and this would give her another opportunity to influence his decision. She felt this was her chance to make things right and regain his trust. But the most important thing was that she was glad to be near the master at that time. The hostess was constantly thinking that she wanted to leave, and he was very worried about it. He thought that all these words were usually used before saying goodbye, but this was not the case. Renie wanted to confess to the hostess and said, "I like you very much." Impressed, he pretended not to hear anything and asked, "What?" To which she replied, "I like you very much. I've been waiting for this for all these 80 years. The hostess interrupted the conversation and wanted to say something. "Thank you for your feelings," replied the host with some surprise in his voice, mixing feelings of awkwardness and gratitude. At this moment, he understood that the relationship between them could change, and this brought him both ups and downs of feelings. Renie's face expressed calmness and hope for the best, while the host hesitated between feelings of uncertainty and possible happiness. We are always on the edge of life and death. No one knows when they might be hurt or when the end will come. You don't want any of us to spend the rest of our lives alone, do you? I always knew that everything would end like this. I always knew that I would ask for the impossible. Nevertheless, I could not be silent about my feelings for the rest of my days. But if you reject Renie's confession and turn your back on me, I will not be able to bear it," Renie said as she pulled out her stone. Renie wants to win the love of the hostess in any way, even if it means using a magic stone. She is ready to use any means to get his love. It was the moment of truth, when their future fates depended on their interactions. Will the host be able to open his heart to Renie, or will he lock it up again in the walls of his fears? "I have a chance with this stone at my disposal, mistress. Please accept it." The master, staring at the stone, does not understand what is happening. Renie did not even have time to finish her offer, as the host began to turn into a monster. It seemed to him that she was asking to kill him, and he hung over her with a huge black cloud of his powers. Out of fright, the stone falls out of Renie's hands and breaks into small pieces, falling to the floor. The monster, with its enormous size, fills her with fear, sending waves of terror through her soul. The stone continues to fall to the floor and breaks into small pieces. At this moment, she realizes that she risked too much, trying to penetrate the heart of the hostess. Now she will have to gather her courage and find a way to bring him back to the man he once was. But will she be able to defeat the monster that has become the master? It remains a matter of time and luck. Directing her eye, which was full of tears from fear, she saw something unusual. Some entity, small and strange, began to be carved out of the stone. The conversation between the boss and the skeleton surprised Renie. "Putting people out is a king's business, but Renie, it's normal to drive out the neck," said the boss, apparently not knowing that Renie was listening to him. "I can't count from the pitiful woman from the dungeon. I can't even close my mouth from shock," said the skeleton, feeling the difficulty of the situation. "Petrick, what should I do?" Renie asked, looking for advice from her friend. "You created the problem and you're looking for answers from me," asked the boss, expressing his anger. Not knowing what to do, Renie decided to turn to her friend for advice. "Well, although he has one option," she thought, trying to find a solution in this difficult situation. "In the event that the whole fault is not only one boss's, it does not relieve him of responsibility for what happened to Petrick." Renie understood, realizing the seriousness of the situation. Now she had to make a decision and act, not knowing what the consequences would be. The boss did not have anything like that in his memory, but Petrick offered to remind him. Then, when Renie was on her knees in front of him and begged for forgiveness, Petrick flew out and began to calm the boss, doing everything possible to save the girl. The boss lost control of himself completely, and Petrick was the only one who could help him. Renie felt that she had done very bad things. She sat and could not regain consciousness, as if under a spell. The skeleton told her to leave the boss to him and disappear herself if possible. She sat, not even hearing his words, so absorbed in her thoughts and feelings. Renie felt deep regret and powerlessness in front of the extraordinary situation that had arisen. It seems that all her hopes for grace and forgiveness were lost the moment she stood before the boss and Petrick. And now she was alone, confused with herself and her actions, unsure of what to do next. Time stood still, and Renie knew she had to make a difficult decision that would change her life forever. Taking his sword, he struck without even asking, knocking Renie away from him without causing her any damage. The boss couldn't come up with anything better. He couldn't find a better way out of the situation. Renie backed off a bit, setting the distance correctly, further than it should have been. "And now you want to kill me?" the skeleton asked the boss with suspicion in his voice. Taking his head, not hiding his emotions, Boss apologized to the skeleton, admitting his guilt. He immediately admitted everything, but neither the boss nor the skeleton could understand why everything happened like this, and why their relationship broke up. Now they will have to figure out why everything happened like this, and what drove the boss to such extremes. They should probably look for Renie. They need her. She was part of the team. She was always there in the most difficult times. Finding her will be the first priority to find out what's going on, and how they can rebuild their team and relationship. So it's time to get your asses up and go find Renie. Hundreds of options immediately began to appear in my head where she could be. From foraging for food to managing the diet of other monsters, cleaning and restoring dungeons, as well as replenishing monsters when setting traps. She could be anywhere. And so on ad infinitum, all this could happen to Renie. The skeleton admits that Renie's existence is more critical to this dungeon than the boss himself. That's why you need to find her before it's too late. Even if you kneel down, even if you sob from sadness, just to find her. Yes, even send your legs, the main thing is to return it. The skeleton suggests taking one thing with you on the road, a demure that helps maintain the balance of mana. You cannot worry about the details. The main thing is to remember that it is very valuable. So get ready for a trip, let's go to find Renie. So it's time to get your asses up and go find Renie. Hundreds of options immediately began to appear in my head where she could be. From foraging for food to managing the diet of other monsters, cleaning and restoring dungeons, as well as replenishing monsters when setting traps. She could be anywhere. And so on ad infinitum, all this could happen to Renie. The skeleton admits that Renie's existence is more critical to this dungeon than the boss himself. That's why you need to find her before it's too late. Even if you kneel down, even if you sob from sadness just to find her. Yes, even send your legs. The main thing is to return it. The skeleton suggests taking one thing with you on the road, a demure that helps maintain the balance of mana. You cannot worry about the details. The main thing is to remember that it is very valuable. So get ready for a trip. Let's go to find Renie. But he went on a long journey in search of a girl. The skeleton shouted on the way that if he goes to a human village, he should behave normally. He was like a father to the boss. The reason was that if people found out it was a monster, nothing good would happen. However, if something does not go according to plan, the boss has one win-win option. It is simply to destroy everyone. The skeleton sends him away with a grin on his face. But everything is much more complicated than it seems at first glance. In the news, it was written that Renie had left the Dandu's teeth somewhere and brought a demon stone, and according to her behavior, she almost died at the hands of the boss. The skeleton seems to have a hunch. If the boss knows about it, there will be an apocalypse. But now is definitely not the time to destroy the whole world. While reading the newspaper, the boss could be heard muttering under his breath. His plans were about to change, and this brought great danger to the entire dungeon. Patrick sees some other very interesting things there. The Joint Raid Command Center in the dungeon is preparing to go through the core of antiquity for 3 days. This immediately confuses Patrick as he realizes what could happen. What attack will he have to fend off if people come? Landing on the ground and opening the pit behind him. Falling to the ground, he hit his back hard. He landed in the wrong place again for the second time. But he remembers the words of the skeleton that magic is unreliable. It is better not to use it again. All because of the lack of balance. But it's too early to give up. You have to try again. The coordinates of the village of Haston turned out to be the key to finding the mysterious stones that Renie regularly sold in the area. Her mysterious origins and self-confidence always attracted the attention of those around her, but her true mission remained a mystery. As they venture deeper into the forest in an attempt to reach the place where, according to legend, a rare stone is found, they find themselves in difficult and surprising situations. A group of raiders was ready to use any means to achieve their goal, but an encounter with an unexpected obstacle put them in a difficult situation. In the thick of the forest, they encountered mysterious forces they could not have predicted, and this put their plans in jeopardy. Renie, who has always been known for her courage and determination, found herself in the limelight when the going got tough. Filled with intelligence and self-belief, she leads her team through obstacles in hopes of success. But when it seemed that all was lost, Unexpected help from a stranger appeared, which changed the course of events. Thanks to faith and courage, Renie and her friends were able to overcome all obstacles and find the long-awaited stone. Their adventures in the village of Hastin became famous throughout the land, and Renie herself became a legend that will live in the hearts of people forever. You may be proud to have learned my name, but at last your time of repentance and end will come. A huge battle begins between the Demon Queen and the forces of humans standing in defense of their land. This fight is filled with incredible tension and power, because the fate of the whole world is at stake. Ordinary arrows created by humans are broken in vain by the face of the Demon Queen. Her power knows no bounds. Even in the face of threat, the Fire Master stands true to his place, devoted to his calling to protect his allies. The hour of truth has come for the indignant people, but their efforts seem small and powerless before a powerful enemy. In this confrontation, the tension between worlds, between strength and weakness, between good and evil is felt. Even in her darkest moment, the Demon Queen is invincible. She shines with the mighty light of her power. No one would be able to cope with her, even to imagine what a fight can give her. It is beyond common sense. Scattering her enemies to the sides, she leaves behind only raptured hearts and a desert silence that is filled with despair and retreat. Likewise, she is now waging a merciless battle with humans, using all of her extraordinary strength. She radiates energy and power that overflows her heart during this merciless fight. Despite the innocent's best efforts, they are powerless before her wealth of magic and brutality. Did one of the men catch the glint of the blade glinting in her eyes? With hope for the best, they look up, taking care of what the future may hold. Could it be that she was able to compose and prepare her new spell so quickly that would change the course of the battle? The stones with which she scattered her magic float and fall asleep on the ground, resembling stars falling to the ground. A person's outstretched hand touches one of the stones. She feels its powerful energy. With the hope that it will help them in victory, they throw a stone in the direction of the demon that threatens them. Using all their magical skills, they work to avoid the deadly attack. But trying to somehow resist, he risks hitting her, hoping to do something to her. She uses her skills so masterfully that she can control the speed of her attacks. Somehow he's able to raise a shield against her attack. Although she thought she was done with the mage, something went wrong. Astonishment grows without limit. People support their leader at every opportunity. This only angered the demon even more, and she was willing to do anything to destroy it. With her power inhibited, she leaps at him, delivering a killing blow with her hand. And only sparks remain under her fingers, testifying to the power of her blow. These sparks inflict very severe burns, leaving the enemy powerless to her magic. Pushing the person and herself to the ground, she does not understand where their opponent got such strength. However, something unknown to both sides appeared, confusing their positions. The lady leader hangs on, mustering all her strength to get up. They don't hear the second group join them. But is it really the second group? She realizes that she's come to help, and if their powers are enough to destroy the castle, things are going to get really bad. But who are they really? You can't see anything because of the thick smoke, and words are heard from under the dust. The boss came to ask, do they know where the baptismal font is? Who they really are, and what they came to do, remains a mystery that confuses all the participants in this fight. Nobody understands who he is. They look at him in surprise and ask questions. Appearing out of nowhere, he carries some crazy unknown story. He seems to be human. He's advised to stay away from the Demon Queen. After looking at her, the boss does not believe that she is a real queen. How can I recognize her? He thinks, because her ancestors looked completely different. Maybe it's all in the generations, he muses. However, events do not stop, and the boss intends to solve the case. What's going on here? He thinks, but the fight, it seems, will continue. Embryos are premature. You will pay for destroying my castle, he threatens as he prepares to deliver the punishment. Now you will hear with what cruelty it can be destroyed, he announces, preparing for the attack. The leader understands that support has come, and this gives her an additional charge of energy and confidence. It's time to rise to the challenge and stand up for yourself, as forces have gathered to confront the chaos and restore order. We all need to group together and kill the queen. With loud words, they attack to destroy her. The fight continues and the boss sits and waits for it to be over. He was fed up with these fights. He needs to find an arena as soon as possible. It seems that it will not be possible to come to an agreement here. If he is late, Patrick gets very angry. His body begins to mutate and he screams loudly for everyone to shut up. Caught in fear, everyone watches, not understanding what is happening. But who appeared before them? He's not going to spare a drop of pity for anyone present. But he can easily kill anyone who approaches him, scatter the stage, break all the bones that people have and anyone who is near him. And in a moment, he becomes like a cute baby. The demon looks at him too, not understanding what happened. There is no limit to his rudeness, he just burps. She cannot understand and come to her senses what just happened, but who was before her? It is very surprising, but it is strong. If she guessed correctly, then he should not even surpass her by a margin. She has so many questions, although asking them endlessly and learning everything about him. Who are you? What is your name? What is the secret? He only gets disgusted by these questions. He does not want to answer anything, and in general at least somehow continue his conversation with her. Coughing, he quickly apologized. Before him stood a majestic queen, looking like a powerful monarch, the heiress of ancient dynasties, soaring in her majesty. My name is Melju Darifa Greya, she introduced herself, her words sounding like a mantra of power and greatness. Now it's your turn to introduce yourself, the queen expected an answer. His own image seemed inauspicious next to the queen's majesty. As soon as he started to remember his name, naming only the first 2 letters, he stopped. If I open up too soon, rumors might spread, he thought, listening to Patrick's warning. There's no point in risking revealing your real name. Realizing this, he invented a new identity for himself, DeRose. A man with an attractive, flattering smile who came from some small town, DeRose, 32 years old. He remained alone in the crowd. He could not, and this failure put a heavy burden of disappointment on his shoulders. She dreams of crossing space with him to Titan, where their hearts will become closer, and their names will be just Rose. But before that happens, she must complete a difficult mission to seek his help, and in doing so, she risks falling into his trap. If it weren't for his presence, she would sooner admit defeat to the demands of society. Now she has an opportunity to prove her usefulness, hopes for which still burn in her heart. After the first question about the road to Haston, she feels that he puts a lot of faith in her, which will allow him to achieve what he wants. But it would seem that she does not understand his words. Her eyes are watching him in confusion. The smile disappears from his face as suddenly as if a light of hope has accidentally gone out. And it turns out that not only does she not know the way, but the realization of her undeniable ignorance astounds Hastan. Such moments are filled with a mixture of hopes and disappointments, which excite the soul with their mystery. Has he fallen so far that they don't even know anything about this place? After asking where the nearest town is, she also looks at him with amazement. But she seems to know more about this place than anyone else. Rias is the capital of the empire. The journey from it to Hastin takes 2 months on horseback. He just falls face down into the ground. Another says that he needs far from the capital. Maybe he will use the thermal radiation center, he asks. But which center? He had never heard anything like it. It is an invention of humans through magic and alchemy. This magical device is said to forcibly create the magic of movement in space. Rising to his knees, he asks where it is. And it is located in Riaz. Just the idea of VDJH. The road there makes you sit down and think. Riaz is a very beautiful name of the city. This is the center of aviation, the very place for gathering information. But he is unlikely to find Renie here. It is not a fact that she went specifically to Haston, so we need to find out more first. The girl asks him not to worry, because she will help him with his search. But how can the owner of the castle leave it unattended? She only knows what he worries about her. She is a demon queen, a higher being, born to rule. The shape of the dungeon does not matter. The place where she is becoming more suitable for monsters, and they are my army. Is this a typical ability of demon kings? Can you call your soldiers at any time? To which she confidently replies, yes, I can do anything, although I haven't tried it yet. But with a father who could, I can too. For that matter, the castle built by her father is now in ruins, and there is no point in going back there, but that does not whitewash her responsibility to the past. For which she apologizes to the boss, emphasizing her willingness to correct the situation. There is absolutely no need to worry about a siege when the capital of the human empire is right in front of the castle. But this closeness does not exempt from responsibility for the future. Well, it's enough to lose. Let's go collect information. What remains to be done, because every step towards achieving the goal is a step into the future. Because it seems that an extra load has been added, but every test has its own measure and meaning. 2 glasses of beer stand on the table, symbolizing a short pause before new challenges. It seems that the boss has not given up, which means that there are still many important decisions ahead of him. They entered the bar. He has a lot of things on his mind, and she only has to throw herself a beer, knowing that rest time is important to preserve energy for future battles. The moving breath of the mystical bar is permeated not only with the aromas of coffee and spirits, but also with the magic of unpredictable turns of fate. Here, among the twinkling lights and walls full of unique stories, every step becomes a journey into the world of mysterious discoveries and important discoveries. The words dancing in the air sound like a lullaby for the soul, teaching everyone their own unique melody of life. Here, dreams are intertwined with reality, and thoughts like feathered birds take flight into the sky of possibilities. On the walls of the bar are reflected reflections of future adventures and full of hope for change. They witness how each visitor, like an archaeologist, reveals the secrets of the past, searching for treasures of wisdom among mysterious conversations and noble feelings. Looking to the side, he notices a wall with notes. She asks to explain to him what they have here. This is the range of information she was talking about. Sans of the team participating in the raid heard that this was done to prevent multiple groups from coming to the same dungeon. But what is the point in this? Multiple groups never invaded at the same time, otherwise there would be problems with the distribution of rewards. Poor people. If several groups united, the chances of passing the dungeon would increase many times, and they moved away from it in greed. Unexpectedly, she asks him, "Are you also a dungeon monster?" The boss did not expect to hear such a question from her, and he answers confusedly, not knowing what to say to her. And in general, it's strange that I, as the mistress of the castle, can walk on the streets so freely, she adds, making an unusual remark. He is too lazy to answer all this, and he suggests to just forget about this situation. She agrees not to question him so as not to annoy him, and they both remain silent, avoiding unpleasant topics. He notices one listing that lists his house, but it's good that this list is empty for now and there is still some time. This measured dialogue in the bar is like a theatrical production. Hanging by his arm, she also wants to read something, then see, running around him. Okay, look, he shows her a piece of paper, and he exclaims in surprise, "This is one of the 7 dungeons of great evil, the core of antiquity." The boss is surprised that she knows about him. The 7 dungeons of great evil are the core of antiquity, the greatest of the underworld, recognized even by people who are idiots. And this is the goal of all monsters. Among the 7 dungeons, it is the strongest. Lord of all that exists, ruler of the core of antiquity, god and guardian, commanding the intimidated, an ancient monster that stood on top of everything. Mistress Swallow, with her eyes in love, she calls out the word, recognizing him and realizing who he really is. Barely holding back her emotions, she can't help but squeal with happiness when she sees him. But he would say about himself that he is just a landlord, not a ruler, who suffers from evil inhabitants. The core of antiquity is her favorite dungeon, and she wants to become stronger. If he improves his abilities, he will be able to see the mistress of the world. But she's looking at him right now, and he understands that he shouldn't tell her about it yet. Being the most powerful is so wonderful, and she wants to be that too, no matter what. Of course, her father was also strong. He was a worthy demon king, unlike me. But there were simply people stronger than him. One of these was Burn, or whatever he was called, a rather young hero. The boss accidentally swallowed the hero when he sighed. He was so strong. The queen doesn't want to spend all her days just ruling the dungeon like her father. She wants monsters, attracted by her power, to create their own homes in the depths of the earth. Therefore, her main goal was to become stronger. When you're young, it's cool, and the boss understands it. He used to be like that, so long ago that he doesn't even remember when those times were when he led an army capable of demonstrating strength to the whole world. Then he took seriously the desire to master universal knowledge, much more seriously than ever before. Sometimes he even got carried away with emotions and engaged in communication with people whom he previously considered insignificant. However, in the end, I realized that all this will not lead to anything good. So now he just wants peace. This is the meaning of his life. The peace he so desperately craves may be his last great act. During his story, the boss did not even notice that the queen fell asleep. Sounds are coming from all sides. "Hey master, another raid on the dungeon. And this is from yesterday, I forgot to remove it." How could he forget that? What dungeon? Now I will fix everything. And he hammers the letter on the board. Looking at him, he understands what is hiding behind him and what can be expected next. The beautiful weather is charming outside. The wind covers the window and blows the curtain with its wings. The girl's sleep is very deep, but something makes her wake up. She gets up with severe headaches. She can't understand what happened yesterday and can't remember anything because she got very drunk. Of course, she doesn't remember anything. Something very strongly shocks the eater. He even squats back. He can't believe his eyes. Why did she become so small? The Devil Queen turned into a very small girl. He starts mocking her that she is small. But she doesn't take his jokes and Lisa starts fighting with her little fists. She proves to him that she has not become small. But she was like that. The whole point is that yesterday, she was in a form that nasty people do not look down on. This form was called the high version. And now in front of him is a small version known as the first version. The Devourer froze in infantile delight, redeeming his uncertainty at the inexplicable transformation unfolding before his eyes. With a sneer, the queen questions, impressing with her intelligence and wit. "And what about your face? Does it look so bad after consuming our creations?" Carefully and with great grace, she lifts the veil of mystery, telling the story of a complex mechanism of transformation that tests anyone who dares to use it. The mysterious process of reincarnation, which decides the destinies of existence, excites and opens new horizons of unusual possibilities. The guess-eater wears a mask of understanding that is reflected on his face as a sign of his ability to understand and accept this new world. Uncertainty, whether the goal has been achieved, is increased by the ambiguity of the unknown, which is still far open to his understanding. Seeing signs of lack of understanding in the eater's speechless eyes, the queen experiences a strong blow to her own self-esteem. The irony of fate makes her defenseless before him. With every moment, she begins to feel a wave of helplessness lift her. The young evening which besieges the palace of Count Haston impresses with its grandeur and mystery which emanates from every corner of it. The Count's army, capable of incredible deeds, stands before the Devourer for the first time, ready to fulfill any of his wishes. The gates are demanded to be opened, and the raiding party that has come all the way to attack the primordial core is let in. Looking out the window and admiring the beautiful weather, he held the letter in his hands, reading it carefully. The third eye, witch showers from the royal circle. Before us is Lord Haston, Earl of Ethark, a strong and steadfast figure. He clutches the letter and rubs it across the table, emphasizing the importance of the moment. Entering a dungeon of higher rank requires the decision of the lord having jurisdiction over that land. It is a royal order, so Lord Haston, Earl of Ethark, cannot refuse or reject it. He doubts whether this squad can accurately and successfully attack the primordial core. The situation is extremely complex and requires careful consideration of decisions. His view is dominated by the certainty that they will not have enough strength for such an attack on this place. He had never even heard of their leader other than Renie. If they fool with the core of the primordial, then the great trouble will fall first on his region. A great idea comes to mind, to first send a stronger division to conquer the Ride Dungeon. Well, only then would he need a legitimate squad to do so. The answer may be much closer than he thinks, and surely that answer is in the Mage Tower called the Wing. The Tower of Magic and Kryla can cope with this task. Of course, even with their rapid growth, it would be foolish of the Mage Tower to challenge the primordial core. But what if the rumors were true? If the guard fell? Then the only monster at the dirty crossroads should be the Devourer, the boss monster, who personally bowed to Vern's hero unit. He orders to send someone to your magic in the wing immediately and ask this question. Blinn swears in his name to pay a large amount of gold and great honor to whoever does it. There was a loud knock on the door and someone entered. They immediately asked the question, "Did you play like that?" It was Nephrim. The Count wouldn't open the door no matter how much he asked, but he did not immediately apologize for the intrusion. With great indignation, the Count immediately began to ask what brought him here, and he replied, "Oh well, the royal family informed you, in any case. Is there a reason we shouldn't be here?" You can immediately hear the murderous lust emanating from this young lad. The girl who came with him was sitting and smiling. Her green hair was very beautiful. She immediately asked to bring something sweet, a little candies, tea and chocolate. The Count, standing at his table, asked the assistant to bring something sweet. They sat opposite each other and seriously began their conversation. They immediately admitted that they had come here to advise the destroyer of the primordial core. Only one day has passed since the letter arrived. They actually wanted to leave that same day, but something happened that made it impossible. The task was very important, so the Earl was sure that they had better recover their strength before going on the journey. He guaranteed them his accommodation and hospitality, but they refused his offer and decided to set out at once. The Count did not understand what they meant. The young man pointed out that the defense in the Count's house was very weak and easily susceptible to eavesdropping on all conversations with the help of magic. On the way here, he heard everything, in particular the conversation where the Count was going to hire magicians. He's come a long way for the Dungeon Raid Council, so they'll have to get rid of everyone. Who will stand in their way? In the end, the one who is stronger will deal with the core of the original. The Count apologizes and admits that he chatted a little too much, and now they can raid at any time. He's terribly pleased by the Count's kindness. Petrick breaks stones with his sword, practices and places his blows, getting used to the sword. It was almost time for their arrival. The boss is standing with the Devil Queen outside. It reminds them of something. Looking directly, they hope to find him here. He needed to make his way to the teleportation center, asking people along the way how to get there. The center is outside the royal palace, so they need continue to move forward, and they will have to pass 3 more fortress walls. If you walk, it will take about a week. The queen, who had been waiting for countless days, was amazed at how long time was taking. Their leaves twisted in shock, and it was immediately clear on their faces how surprised they were. It was too long a wait. He was already beginning to think that he wouldn't be able to find Renie, and even Petrick was going to run away at this rate. The Queen of Silence, giving him attention, offered to think about the magic of flight. But he promised not to use magic among people. If they overuse mana, people will definitely expose them. If he turns to magic, anything can happen. The man turned to them asking for forgiveness because he managed to eavesdrop on their conversation and heard that they were going to the teleport. It was the divine owner of Belbeer. But why is he divine? The Demon Queen was immediately surprised by his introduction because he introduced himself so unusually. He is divine because he has a homunculus created by his own alchemy. This is Zephyr, the abandoned 4th-generation homunculus. He's a product of the Imperial plan to create artificial humans. He is strong, listens well to commands, and also knows how to fly. However, he would not be able to use his original purpose, to eliminate the last churches and states. The queen thought that this was why people had stopped researching homunculi, but in reality it wasn't like that at all. The empire would not leave such a force for nothing. Now there are rumors that somewhere mass production of homunculi has begun on an industrial scale. The boss thought they were usually grown in large cylinders. His knowledge was very outdated. This cultivation method was only used for the first generation of homunculi 150 years ago. 150 years have already passed, so much time since the birth of Renie. The carriage looks very nice from the inside. It seems that the old man is not lying. It takes 3 hours in the air plus an hour at the checkpoint to get to the portal on the homunculus, for a total of 4 hours. Although they will fly through, they will still need to be checked at the castle gates. For this journey, he wants 8 ounces of gold coins. These gold coins are equivalent to 800 ounces of silver coins, and the team in the pub paid only 8 silver coins for the night. That's 100 times more than what they paid for their accommodation yesterday. The demon boss and queen didn't have that much money. But reaching into his pocket, he heard a rustle and pulled out a scroll containing something. Petrick, admitting his clumsiness, secretly put the money in his boss's pocket, believing that one day he would be grateful to him, and left a note next to the money. They set off on homunculi to fly to the goal they have set before them. The queen asked who gave him so much money. "My dungeon partner gave them to me," he answered cryptically. The queen could not understand how a dungeon monster could move among people so easily, and asked him this question. It seems that it would be correct to say to the boss that he was driven away. Deep in thought, the queen realized that the mate they were looking for, a monster banished from his community, actually shared the fate of an exile with them. She couldn't help but feel sympathy for such a fate, thinking of the deep mutual support and devotion they had shown each other. Loyalty that knew no bounds gripped his soul as he continued to worry about his comrade far beyond the dungeons. The queen envied such a relationship, dreaming of finding someone who would care for her with the same tenderness and devotion. Her heart was warmed by the thought of mutual care, of a world where she could share love and be loved. This feeling of unity and support seemed almost magical to her. The boss, absorbed in his own thoughts, only sighed deeply in response to her thoughts, leaving questions about the future open. The view from the homunculus window revealed a view of the Siberian rose, which symbolized the path to unknown treasures and adventures, heralding new discoveries on their way. But the door to teleportation was firmly shut in front of them, causing frustration and forcing them to look for alternative ways to their goal. The queen, surprised by the surprise, apologized to the boss, trying to find a common solution in this unforeseen circumstance. The manager of the Siberian Rose suggested that they wait a bit, promising access to the teleport already in the evening, when the auction was over and the guests of honor headed home. This promise diffused the tension between them, giving them time to think and plan their next course of action while they waited for their moment. The atmosphere filled with anticipation and hope. They felt that every delay only made them stronger. The restriction on the use of the teleporter was introduced through the auction to prevent people from having uncontrolled access to the area where it is held. The pattern on the paper evoked echoes of memories in the queen, as if it contained familiar symbols or signs that had a special meaning for her. The boss immediately realized that he had seen this object in the arena. It was the same weapon used by his partner. "Isn't that the weapon that turns into a huge sword with a hiss and destroys everything in its path when it's drawn?" he pondered. She wore clothes that had no shape, but had no pockets to hide weapons. It was undoubtedly a weapon from the arena, but how did it get into people's hands? The queen could not understand which people of the arena the boss was talking about, to which he replied that it was an arena that even lords from other large dungeons did not have free access to. People wouldn't normally be able to stand up to Renie, who was extremely strong. She was nicknamed the Blade Maid for a reason. But when she ran away, he no longer remembered whether she had her blade with her. She wore roomy clothes with no pockets where weapons could be hidden. "And she threw one of her weapons at me when I mistook her for an enemy," he recalled bitterly. Renie had never faced humans in combat, carrying fewer than 5 blades, which showed her unparalleled skill and preparation for any challenge. Petrick, for his part, was strong even without his sword, which only helped him reach his full potential, but was not the deciding factor in his power. Renie could not give up her role as a maid with a blade, even if she did not have her weapons with her, because her strength lay not only in weapons, but also in her spirit. The boss, filled with fear and indignation, could not understand how Renie could die at the hands of ordinary people, which seemed absurd to him. If Renie had indeed died, it caused him to have an almost uncontrollable explosion of mana that burst out uncontrollably in a fit of intense rage. The teleport operator sitting next to him was so scared that his reaction was loud and emotional, causing even more anxiety throughout the facility. The boss, overcome with anger, felt an overwhelming desire for revenge, dreaming of the total destruction of everyone around him, to rid the world of those who, in his opinion, caused Renie's death. His ultimate goal was to bring Renie back, resurrect her, or find a way to restore her life, which became his obsession. In his infinite grief and despair, the boss thought about ways to rewrite fate, to find a secret that would allow him to intervene in the fabric of reality and bring Renie back to life, despite all the prohibitions and risks. At the same time, his unwavering determination testified to the depth of his devotion and love for Renie, turning his path into a legend of unbreakable faith into an impossible feat that would make fate itself wonder. The queen, using all her wisdom and patience, tried to calm him down, constantly searching for words of comfort in the long silence that had fallen upon their conversation. Confused and without any understanding of the reason for their concern, she plunged into deep thought, trying to find answers to what had happened. Her interlocutor, the boss, with unwavering seriousness, asked only one question, and then only once. Is there really only one specimen of the 36 Shedev, a brachycephalic tooth? In this vast world, is there really only one such instance? The question that sounded from the depths of his expectations demanded an answer. As far as the queen knew from all the information she had gathered, yes, only one such specimen existed, making it a priceless treasure. This item is key to my partner, who is relentlessly searching for it. Its return is my priority, she shared, realizing the weight of her task. He expressed his gratitude to the queen, saying that her help was no longer needed. Although their paths crossed only for a short time, he will always remember this meeting with warmth. I know the ways that will allow me to reach Haston, and now that this moment has come, I must continue my journey alone. He was full of determination, ready for new challenges. The queen realized that she had better leave this place as soon as possible, because her presence now only made things more difficult, jeopardizing their plans. However, at the decisive moment, the queen cried out with dignity and determination, "Queen Sarah, the partner you so eagerly seek, here I am." VDJ, acknowledging his role in this tangled story. In the depths of the ominous dungeon, amidst the darkness and cold, appeared a girl with hair as if made of silver, the embodiment of mystery and beauty in this world-forgotten place. A strong man, able to use his teeth as a weapon, stood before her, the embodiment of strength and invincibility, ready for the challenges that the dungeon had in store for them. She seemed to be provoking the monster with her boldness and steadfast determination, but it was clear from the Lord of the Place's reaction that her casual confidence had a real basis beneath it. She didn't ask him for anything. She didn't show any desire to listen to his intimidation or threats. She wasn't scared even when he spoke to her in a frightening tone. Her understanding of who he really was came instantly, as if she had seen through his outward appearances to the very essence of his being. Her respect for the dungeon boss was boundless, as she could sense the depth of his strength and wisdom that lay behind his ferocious appearance. The boss soon showed her her place in this world, not through submission, but through mutual understanding and recognition of her own strength. She understood how much power was hidden in him, and that this power was not just physical but also spiritual, capable of transforming the reality around. Her role as the guardian of the arena, the great core of creation, was defined not only by her invincible fighting skills, but also by her indomitable will and deep understanding of higher truths. She was a supreme being, assigned to guard the balance between light and dark, between chaos and order, fulfilling her role with a majesty worthy of a true guardian of the primordial core. The one who had previously been able to call Mrs. Ran his partner turned out to be none other than Sir Demel, a figure surrounded by myth and legend, whose name was forgotten by time, but not by fate. It was clear from the boy's expression that she had not guessed his true nature, but her unwavering confidence only added to the mystery. She seemed to unravel all the secrets that were hidden from the eyes of ordinary mortals. Her intuition and intelligence exceeded all expectations. When the boss had just begun to make his proclamation of power over the core of the dungeons, she interrupted him before he could finish, shouting, "He's your boss!" It was clear from the boy's expression that she had not guessed his true nature, but her unwavering confidence only added to the mystery. She begged him not to be dismayed by her deductive powers, which exceeded all expectations, promising her help without accepting objections. "Your objections are not accepted," she asserted with a smile, realizing that it was impossible to predict her next move. The boss, with a laugh in his voice, asked, "VJNJ's a demon king? Is it really possible to be guided by such simple logic?" DJKJ. The answer rang out loudly and confidently. VDJ angelological monsters do not become demon kings, but the words spoken by the demon king always make logical sense. DJKJ. This was not just a discussion between powerful beings, it was a meeting of two different worlds, where logic and instinct intertwined, creating a new dimension of understanding and interaction. This is a facial expression, but this boss, this mistress of secrets, knows Sir Demel inside and out. Her heart froze at the words he spoke, words that seemed more terrifying than any monster she had ever encountered. She was relieved to see him back to normal, and decided to stay by his side from now on despite all the dangers. With anxiety in her voice, she asked him to promise that he would never again speak in such a frightening voice that had caused her such fear. The day of the auction was in full swing, the atmosphere tense in anticipation of the unknown. At the main entrance stood a guard with a spear, ready for any contingencies. The question swirled in his mind, why defend this place if no one showed up? Think about the meaning of your presence. The queen, like the embodiment of sophistication, appeared before him in a beautiful dress. Her beauty was impressive, and she declared her desire to participate in the auction. I came to participate in the auction. Where can I enter? VGJ, her voice sounded softly, but with a note of determination, readiness for new challenges. The guard, meeting her gaze, realized that he was not a simple visitor, but a person of great weight and importance, which changed his attitude to duties. I'm Melia from the Grey family, and this is my companion, DMD. She introduced herself with dignity, standing in front of the guard who was already opening the list of guests. The security guard, looking at the list, raised his eyes suspiciously at the visitors, and then, with uncertainty in his voice, apologized. I'm sorry, but your name is not on this list. My God, this just can't happen. Demle, did you accept the invitation? Melja exclaimed, turning to her companion with a slight reproach. Yes, that's the invitation, Demle began, but was interrupted by a security guard who tried to explain that invitations were not distributed for this auction. Unexpectedly, the guard received a strong hand blow to the head, which Demle considered a sufficient invitation for them. Here is your invitation to the afterlife, said the boss, addressing the guard lying on the ground, showing his fist as an argument of undeniable persuasiveness. And, changing her appearance, Melia observed that the guard might not have fallen at the sight of the queen, but the boss's fist was irresistible to him. After overcoming the obstacle with one guard, they were able to penetrate deeper into the territory, which led them to new adventures. The events are suddenly transferred to the majestic Chalked Castle, where new challenges and unknown secrets awaited the heroes. In this new environment filled with history and magic, Melia and Demle had to find a way to prove their abilities and endurance, because every step could lead to unknown consequences. Renie, faced with overwhelming circumstances, will never again be able to return to the core of creation, losing her only chance to restore her destiny. 80 years ago, the Graphinia forest, which was known for its beauty and magic, was engulfed in a red, all-consuming fire that carved a deadly path through life and nature. It never occurred to anyone that people are capable of such a crime, capable of turning the charm of the forest into ashes. It became unknown how long it would take for the Graphinia forest to recover, and once again become a place of happiness and harmony. The owner of this forest was Countess Nerekina, known as the Witch Fairy of the land of Graphinia, who kept her lands under strong protection. She used this forest in the main region as her base, pouring some of her soul and magic into it. The Countess should have calmed down, considering that whoever caused this fire could no longer cause harm, but her heart was still full of anxiety and despair. A girl sat in prison, whose fate remained uncertain. It is not known if she was involved in the crime, but her innocence has been questioned. The longer they looked at her, the more they understood how magical she was. She was called a creature not of this world, a homunculus, a life form created by human hands. This girl, shrouded in mystery, has become a symbol of the unknown, raising questions about the boundary between natural and artificial, living and created. Among those who kept her behind bars, there was no consensus on whether to kill her or let her live. These are the words of your late owner. Now you can be free, so you can just leave. The word sounded like a sentence granting freedom. But for some reason, I just want to act on my own accord. That doesn't mean I'm going to help you escape, he continued, leaving his hope for freedom uncertain. If you fall into a trap, the wild beasts will tear you apart. The choice is yours, Rello, he warned, emphasizing the danger that lay beyond their shelter. Your master was looking for a servant named Rello, but since I haven't seen any others here, I assume that's your name, he guessed, giving her an identity. The mercy I have shown you up to this point is over, he said with weight, as if to emphasize the end of her temporary safety. The boss said this phrase, exhausting all the words that had to be said, and left her alone with the silence that filled the space between them. He had done a very dignified act in setting her free, despite all the risks and uncertainties that awaited her outside the walls of their sanctuary. The silence that surrounded them after his words was saturated with the weight of the decision that rested on Rello's shoulders, the choice between an unknown future and lost security. This act of dignity and generosity left Rella with a sense of gratitude and newfound strength, ready to face the challenges that awaited her beyond the walls that had once been her prison. He carefully opened the cage, allowing her to find her way to freedom. This gesture was more than just an act of mercy. It symbolized the beginning of a new life, freedom from the chains that bound her until now. Relo was the name of a servant who unquestioningly obeyed the ancient patriarchal traditions of his family. He performed his duties better than any maid, bringing to his work unique dedication and skill. Among the servants of generation after generation, Ralo stood out as a servant whose wisdom and age did not hinder her tireless work. Her presence was like a beacon that lit the way for others. And this homunculus, who was never called Relo, could not see himself as just a tool or a toy. He was something more, surpassing his purpose and giving a new meaning to the word existence. After all, for an object that does not have a name, the very name Relo has become a symbol of the fact that it has always been more than just a homunculus for its creator. She was a symbol of hope, strength of spirit, and indomitability. Renie sat under the ancient walls of the decrepit castle, gazing into its grandeur and mysticism. She thought about the fate that awaited her and about the secrets that were kept behind those walls. A shadow appeared behind her, warning of the approach of an army sent to the core of creation. This message was both a challenge to fate and a chance to change the future. Even if the messengers of fate assured her that it was too late to return to the core, Renie knew that her decision could change everything. Her will to freedom and the right to choose were dearer to her than anything in the world. She valued happiness, but freedom of choice was the highest good for her. Renie understood that the value of choice is incomparably higher, and she was ready to fight for the right to control her destiny. Maybe it's time to change something. Renee felt that she faced great challenges, but her determination and desire to change the world around her were unwavering. It was a path to new beginnings, to her own destiny, which required courage and courage from her. She was older than me, but I definitely understand that this couple combed the entire continent in search of her. Their surprise will be inevitable when they learn about how Renie was deceived by the people. Petrick, of course, will be forced to take action, but then what about the Devourer? His reaction can be unpredictable and radical. If Renee plans to keep hiding, she'll have to go missing and never come out in public again, her mentor advises. But there is no reason to worry, because Petrick is aware and is already preparing to protect the core of creation. He is convinced that he will soon be able to repel the attack. If Renie really wants to put an end to this situation, now is the time to act. Lady Battery shares this wisdom with her. Feeling the need for fresh air, Renie gets up and prepares to go for a walk. Her movements indicate an invincible spirit. Lady Bathory notices that Renie's health is deteriorating and offers her help and support. Renie thanks Lady Bathoria for her concern and asks about the location of her blades. Her determination in her voice heralds readiness for any challenge. The Devourer holds his foe by the neck, pinning him against the wall, and demands that he tell everything he knows about the brachycephalic tooth. His voice sounds like an ominous warning. Amidst the agony of pain, the captive talks about the magic that the Christian wing tower possesses, his words filled with fear and hope. The Devourer listens intently, feeling the depth of the knowledge imparted, and seems to come to an understanding of the essence of these mysteries. Grateful for the honesty, the Devourer releases his interlocutor, allowing him to rest on the cold ground under the weight of his own pain. With the words that he almost suffered death, the prisoner asks how it was possible to punish him like this, because he was only fulfilling his duty. The Devourer's mana vibrates with every moment, as if coming to life and gathering for future action, promising the unknown. You are only human, and you did me no harm, but you were lucky enough to meet me on your path, the Devourer reasons, expressing his philosophy. With spine-tingling wit, he continues, your conquests and strategies are just decorations for your accomplishments, but have you thought about those you call monsters? Have you ever felt guilty for those you destroyed? Do you understand that they died not because of mistakes, but because you decided them as enemies? Amidst these reflections, the auction reaches its climax, with bids soaring to sky-high heights of 3.8, 3.9, then 5 and even 6 million. Each player held their breath as they waited for the next move, tension in the air and all eyes on the auctioneer conducting the betting game. A hand rises from the crowd. I'm bored, so are we. The thought is included in the process that we can throw in a couple of fake bets for fun. I can't even have fun when you're around, said Black Wolf Knight's officer warrior Win Historia with a slight smile. My God, so full of our mission, Pathfinder Garrett, also a member of the Knights of the Black Wolf, remarked to her. Their plan was to finish it all quickly and go to lunch. Maybe a salmon sandwich or pumpkin pie. Oh, I still want pudding, she said dreamily. Finally, the winner of the auction was announced. Winner number 3. And with that, the auction ended. Words were uttered that caused astonishment, and blood flew in different directions. "The auction will end when I want it to," cried a mysterious voice. Garrett and the girl were confused, not understanding what was happening. The Devourer stood in front of them, his mana ruling the surrounding space. He was ready to kill anyone who happened to be here, asking who wanted to buy the tooth. Warriors in the Empire, there are only 3 of them left after one of them, General Verne, perished in the cores of the Primordial. They had to act quickly, because every minute was worth its weight in gold, and in their hearts burned the desire to save not only themselves, but also the entire Empire from the unspeakable evil unfolding before their eyes. His duty was to protect the citizens of the Empire, but accusations of seeking personal enrichment through subjugation weighed heavily on him. But since Verna, the object of this hatred, had already died, the 2 soldiers left behind had to bear the brunt of public condemnation. One of them, Win, was determined to regain the people's trust by enduring the ordeal with great determination. She maintained her survival instinct despite the difficulties thrown her way. Win was gathering stories that might help her avoid a confrontation with the Eater, but she was ready to defend herself if necessary. She knew that she would not be able to avoid fighting him forever. This man was too dangerous to face without proper training. He touched the weapon that Renie wielded, and memories of her came flooding back, giving him a sense of determination. It was immediately clear from the weapon that it was the one that Renie would not part with, as her aura was unique. The aura emanating from the weapon was so strong that no arena could compete with it in intensity and power. The weapon glowed green, emitting a mysterious light that magically illuminated the surrounding space. The Devourer wondered how exactly humans could obtain such a weapon, and the question never left him, causing concern and uncertainty. It will be quite difficult for him to explain the situation to the people in the hall, since they expected from him answers, not riddles. He decided he had no choice but to honestly admit that the weapon already had an owner, and apologize to everyone who had bid on it. People in the hall, indignant, began to call for the help of the guard to detain the young man who claimed to have a weapon. The Devourer, not wanting to delay for long and realizing that people were not going to let him go, decided to turn into a real devourer. He plans to tear everyone into small pieces, leaving no chance for survival, and plans to bury them under the ruins of the building, covering the traces of his terrible act. A confident voice suddenly rang out from the crowd, surprising the Eater. "You think I'll let that happen?" One of the warriors resolutely jumps high above the crowd of people, ready to face evil. The gobbler smiled, thinking she looked like a flying squirrel, but admitted that her movement was quite skillful and supported by proper equipment. However, it seemed too clumsy to hit the target. She only had a glove, which seemed to be a rather rare item. The Devourer could have easily broken her hands along with those gloves, leaving nothing intact. But it is worth admitting that for a person, her efforts were not bad. She was about to use her most powerful strike, called Into the Ashes, swinging with all the force she could muster. But her weapon hand seems to have closed into a fist, remaining in the Devourer's hand. It looked like something had gone completely wrong. The Devourer did not expect such a force from the blow, and the stones that were on the floor, on which the Devourer stood firmly, flew in different directions from the force of the blow. Chaos reigned all around, caused by surprise and the force of the moment. It seemed that a small but determined girl could still do something incredible. Her courage and steadfastness were surprising, confirming that size does not always determine strength. If she hadn't been so small, the Devourer might have already been defeated by her. This thought flashed through the mind of the Devourer, who could not help but recognize her indomitability. Watching as even the dust beneath his feet witnessed the battle, he couldn't believe what had happened. Everything around was engulfed in the tension of this epic battle. She couldn't fathom how this ability was able to defeat most of the bosses in the dungeon without even leaving a trace. Her wonder was boundless, and the possibilities seemed unfathomable. And these gloves, replicas of the Apocalypse, were supposed to withstand a stronger blow at least 3 times, but they just broke from one blow. This moment highlighted the unexpected fragility of even the strongest objects. She took them off her hand and threw them on the floor as a symbol of disappointment and false hope and rejection of defeat. Her gesture was full of desperation and determination. It immediately became clear that the dark liquid flowing from him indicated that he was not a man, but an unusual monster. This discovery forced a rethinking of all previous experience. The question arises as to who he really is. The mystery surrounding his true nature only intensified the intrigue and increased the desire to know the truth. This blow made him very angry. He was seized with a rage that resembled the protection of his own mother. His reaction was full of emotion and despair, which emphasized the depth of his feelings. The question was acute. Will he be able to control her? The tension in the air only escalated, and the fate of the battle seemed uncertain. A handful of dark fog appears in front of her, which seems to have materialized out of nowhere, bringing a new mystical dimension to the situation. A second warrior rushes to her aid, determined to save her from an imminent threat. His arrival changes the dynamics of the battle. Thus began a one-on-two battle, where each movement could decide the fate of the participants in this conflict. She pleads with Gareth to stay away as the situation is extremely dangerous. In desperation, she grabs her hand, and together they retreat, avoiding danger. Leaving the Eater and the Demon Queen alone, they opened a new chapter in their eternal struggle. They were incredibly lucky to be unharmed and alive after such an ordeal that could have had a very different ending. The Queen was convinced that he had no chance of survival. A blow beyond the strength of an ordinary person could be fatal if it hit the Eater directly in the heart. Out of surprise and fear, he could return to his normal form, which would be his doom. If his disguise was revealed, going back would be impossible. Discovering his true nature could change everything. Looking into the distance, the Devourer realized that they had fled the scene, unwilling to fight to the end. In his eyes, it looked like a tactical retreat, but not a defeat. Just think, there were two flying squirrels. That's how the Devourer called them in his mocking manner, disdaining their efforts. Especially the pink-haired girl who took everyone out of the way, while her companion distracted the enemy by creating protective magics for the blue-haired girl, all almost simultaneously. For the Devourer, such a ruse was more amusing than threatening, because he was not used to his opponents resorting to such tricks. The two female warriors having landed could not believe that they were blown to dust by some nameless creature, which they perceived as an insignificant threat. They rejoiced, looking at each other, in disbelief of their success, and the fact that they managed not only to go through this ordeal, but also to survive. Gareth's hand was badly injured, but this did not stop their joy at their joint victory over the circumstances. They hugged, not hiding tears of joy, confirming their mutual support and gratitude for the saved life. At that moment, Gareth realized that that monster, the Devourer, could be a being from the very core of the primordial. This knowledge flashed through her mind. She sensed that their encounter with the Devourer was no accident. The blue-haired girl couldn't believe that such a monster could be here in their world, where she thought safety still existed. But Gareth was 100% sure of it. There was no doubt in her heart as to who they were dealing with. It really was him, the poor black man, the ancient devouring monster, whose tracks were connected with the stories of the warrior Vern. His presence here was no accident. Lady Wynn and Gareth realized that the situation was much worse than they had imagined. The darkness that gathered around portended only evil. They realized that under such circumstances, the Empire could collapse if immediate measures were not taken against this evil. If it really is a devourer, then they should put up a stronger resistance. This was their land, a place where they had an advantage and could join forces. Gareth was aware that trying to convince the blue-haired girl might be futile, and they currently had no chance of winning without additional support. It was decided to seek help from the headquarters of the Dungeon Raid Union and report the situation to the royal family. Gareth had to go there alone. It was impossible to teleport both of them in their current state, so the blue-haired girl would have to stay here alone. She begged Gareth not to leave her alone, but there was no other choice. Gareth had to make this difficult decision for the sake of their future and the safety of the Empire. The Eater is very upset by all this. It seems to him that it is easier to leave the fugitives and go to the thicket or chase after them in order to get rid of all the dangerous elements. They did not leave him in his thoughts. He thought about how it would be right to act and caused a stir. He successfully returned his weapons to Renie. Therefore, his work here is already finished. He has a goal that he must remember. He needs to find at least Renie's corpse. The Queen stood behind the Eater with a very sad face. He turned to her to ask what was wrong, but she just remained silent. "All is well?" That's all she said, but it was immediately clear from her face that something had happened. "You are very strong," she sighed. "I have already noticed this in the Demon King's fortress, but the more I study you, the more I admire your abilities. You said that Lady Renie was your colleague, but you look much stronger than her. Please tell me, sir, please. Who are you really? Tell me who you are." But he wasn't going to tell her anything. Gently hitting her on the head with his hand, he said, "Stupid. Why are you so sad because you don't know who I am? I told you who I am. I'm just a gentleman." "Once it's all over, I'll tell you the whole truth," said the Eater. "Now we need to get out of here. Show me the full power of the Demon King," he told her. To which she agreed, without presenting any arguments and without asking unnecessary questions. It happened very quickly, she added. Swirled by a tangle of intrigue, their actions intertwine in a perilous dance of mystery and danger. She appeared before him in a new image, looking very attractive, like a real queen. Her bust was extremely large, and her hair was purple in color, filled with radiance. She performed her magic called reconstruction, which caused a huge purple dome. After the transfer, only a huge explosion remained, causing panic among the people. The blue-haired girl understood that this was the place where the auction was held, and everyone was outraged. Everyone ran away from the explosion, thinking that something terrible was happening. The warrior recalled the words of her colleague, who asked her to just wait for her here. This greatly infuriated her, but she could do nothing but wait. Someone took the hand of a small boy from the crowd of people running away from the explosion. Such events left a mark on the hearts and minds of the heroes, and they were ready for further challenges in this mysterious world. It was a little girl clinging to her hand and asking for help because her daddy was there, holding her little hand on which her tears fell. She promised the little girl she made a firm promise. She would take care of everything and save Dad and the people who suffered. They introduced themselves to the people as a warrior Uin, her story. She cannot afford to lose to such a monster. She takes this challenge upon herself. After the huge explosion, nothing was left on the ground except ruins. People who were lying under these ruins were wondering how to escape from the rubble. Landing on the ground, the Devourer did not understand that it was just that, how they were able to transfer so quickly. The magic that the Queen used was called reconstruction, an advanced magic that strikes the ground, making it tremble. These events open a new chapter in the fight against evil and an unpredictable future for the heroes and the whole world. The Devourer asked her to concentrate so confidently that she used the most rosary magic known only to the Queen. The Queen wanted to know as soon as possible what the Devourer meant next. But even in the head of the Devourer himself, everything was becoming even more confusing. He remembered that the Demon Queen had less time to teleport. For this reason, the Eater asked her to go there first and protect him, because people would flock there unpredictably. He also asked her to prepare a teleporter to travel to Hastin so that he could go there immediately. And there can be no discussion. I have said my last word, he declared. She only asked if she knew the coordinates of the core of the primordial, to which the Queen replied, I've said many times that of all the dungeons I love the core of the primordial. Hastin is the closest to the village from it. But she saw the core of the primordial only in books. Such a mysterious exchange of thoughts leaves many questions and opens new depths of magic and adventure in a world where reality is intertwined with fantasy. She promised to take care of the device and protect it. Looking at the huge crowd of people, the Eater could not even count them. They were the people who represented the lingerie family of the 9 pillars of the Empire. They were the Blue Crane Cultivation Squad. The captain of the detachment turned to the Eater with the question, "Who are you?" He didn't understand why people put so much effort into showing off. He was already thinking about it when he was shown that there were surprisingly many people in the air at the auction, and it turned out that they were all the personal army of someone present. They wanted to know who was standing before them, only respect and options, why he did not find the Devourer Mayor to tell about himself. He simply introduced himself as your enemy. At that time, other events were taking place in the core of Genesis. Nephrim moved forward with his army. They talked about how people who enter this place never come back. It was said that if someone died there, their soul would be banished and forced to wander the underworld without rest. Sevilla ran briskly around Nephrim, playfully teasing him, hinting that they had better go back, because even Nephrim could be scared. Sevilla always had a great sense of humor that made their journey refreshing and less scary. The first room they walked through had monster corpses everywhere, but the one they were in now was surprisingly clean, as if someone had recently cleaned it up. It feels as if someone carefully cleaned the room before their arrival, leaving a mysterious atmosphere. Sevilla activated light magic that instantly lit up the entire room, dispersing the shadows and revealing hidden corners to their eyes. A skeleton appeared in front of them and said in a broken voice, "Oh guys, how did you decide to come here even though no one invited you here? Welcome." Nephrim immediately recognized the Death Knight Petrick in front of him, who seemed to have prepared a grand welcome for them, promising them an unforgettable experience. Petrick, enthusiastically ready for the meeting, offered them to put away their weapons and calm down for a moment, as if inviting them to a friendly conversation. Such an invitation from Petrick only added intrigue to their adventure, promising to overturn the usual understanding of this place and their purpose in it. They immediately attacked him, not even giving him a chance to catch his breath, showing a complete lack of manners. None of them showed delicacy, not even allowing Petrick to catch his breath after their unexpected appearance. Nephrim activated his powerful skill called Ice Soul, which sent a huge flock of ice right behind them, striking the opponents with a surprise blow. This powerful blow was delivered with all its might, causing the opponents to feel the full force of Nephrim. Petrick always easily passed through such trials, but this time, being alone among enemies, it was especially difficult for him. Despite the certainty of victory, the battle grew fiercer, and Nephrim continued to strike with all his skill. The sword that was behind Petrick's back radiated extraordinary power, as if portending danger. Unfortunately, things didn't turn out as expected, and Nephrim, who everyone thought was an ordinary man, turned out to be incredibly strong. Nephrim possessed impressive physical strength, the ability to quickly recover in boiling blood, which gave him an advantage in battle. He was a true warrior, gifted with unusual abilities, capable of standing against any challenge, including against a legendary warrior like Petrick. Despite using his powers for a long time, Nephrim could only rely on them for a limited time. For Petrick, the task was simple, to last just 1 minute in the battle against Nephrim. Desperate to hold on to the advantage, Petrick activated his Fortify super skill, hoping to strengthen his defenses. Ephraim shouted angrily at Patrick, demanding that he shut up and stop making any more bold predictions about victory over his army. With his magic, Nephrim managed to knock Patrick to the ground, showing his superiority in battle. A plan had already formed in Patrick's head. He thought about how to quickly get rid of the green-haired sorceress, who could become an obstacle. However, ignoring his calls for silence, Nephrim planted his foot on Petrick, asserting his superiority. With all his strength accompanying his actions with cries of "Die!" Nephrim raised his stinger above Petrick, preparing to deliver the decisive blow. Such a development cast doubt on Petrick's ability to complete his task of holding out for a minute against such a powerful opponent. This moment of tension emphasizes not only Nephrim's physical strength, but also his determination to overcome any obstacle on his way to victory. Nephrim, mustering all his strength, swung around trying to hit the skeleton, but the skeleton only grabbed the tip of the weapon with 2 fingers, showing its superiority. The skeleton, with a loud laugh, began to enjoy the situation, admitting that this time he played his part to the fullest. He admitted that at first he did not intend to abuse the participants, but in recent years he became too bored. The skeleton thanked everyone present for cheering him up, giving him moments of joy in his endless loneliness. Nephrim, unable to contain his fear, screamed very loudly, losing control of the situation. Confused by what happened, he froze in place, not knowing how to react further. Looking at Petrick, Nephrim noticed that he was beginning to come to his senses, coming back from a state of unconsciousness. Using the moment when Nephrim was confused, Petrick tried to seize the initiative and save the situation. But Nephrim realized that it is better to observe the further development of events, instead of rushing to conclusions. Up to this point, not a single soul that had encountered the Death Knight Petrick had been able to return home, emphasizing the mystical danger he posed. If Yefimov really knew Nephrim's name, it would be important for the further development of events, indicating a certain interdependence between them. However, interacting with that green-haired girl, Rosie, presented some difficulty, as she used magic that still made Petrick uncomfortable. Petrick knew that the young man's name was Nephrim, thanks to the sorceress who called out his name until the last incantation, making his name an accompaniment to her spells. Despite this, Petrick could not imagine how exactly she could summon Nephrim, putting a special meaning in the name. Petrick hoped to evoke an emotional reaction from Nephrim, but it seemed that Nephrim was too unmoved. It is time for the survivor to answer questions that may reveal his true intentions and knowledge. Petrick realized that even the most unexpected plan could not include sending only 30 men on such a risky mission. Putting the sword to Nephrim's neck, Petrick offered him a choice: raise his right hand if he agrees to answer the question, or his left hand if he refuses. This moment became decisive in their confrontation, requiring Nephrim to show his willingness to cooperate or continue the conflict. Petrick waited, tense, for Nephrim's reaction, realizing that the answer to this question could change the course of their meeting and determine the fate of both participants in the conflict. Nephrim, gathering his will into a fist, raises his right hand, signaling his readiness to answer the question, but instead shows his middle finger to Petrick, which was a surprise for the latter. This gesture was the first time Petrick had been beaten so blatantly and harshly, leaving him confused. But at the same time, he couldn't help but acknowledge Nephrim's bravery. Petrick, though sympathetic to Nephrim's choice, now wishes for his end to be long and painful, crediting his defiance. After this incident, Petrick realizes that he has a task to clean up a room in which many bodies have been left, which requires a lot of effort. A sword sticks out from Nephrim's back, which has become a testimony of the fierce battle that took place. Nephrim looks back at the girl, Seville, who is lying motionless, covered in blood, which has become a bitter reality for him. There are no signs of life on Sevilla's face. Her features are frozen in an expressionless mask, which only increases the tragedy of the moment. Nephrim, racked with guilt, asks for forgiveness from Seville for not being able to deal with Petrick and protect her. This event opens a new dimension in the relationship between the characters, where desperation and responsibility are intertwined with the desire for revenge and salvation. Each step in this story reveals the deeper motivations and emotions of the characters, forcing the reader to think about the cost of the choices and the consequences they lead to. Nephrim, aware of his mission in the dungeon, knew he had to survive to demonstrate his honor and strength despite the challenges he faced. Lying on the floor, Petrick suddenly heard a strange noise that made him shudder in fear, realizing that they couldn't have come here without a backup plan. Petrick wondered if the enemy became stronger by devouring corpses, and what would happen if this creature ate them without limit. Does it only work with human corpses? And what is the source of this ability? Alchemy or magic? He felt the need to find out as soon as possible, because there were too many corpses around that could serve as a source of strength for the enemy. Petrick also wondered where the boss might be and what he might be doing at this time, hoping that he wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary in dangerous places. The Devourer, surrounded by magical energy that grew to unprecedented limits, destroyed everything in its path, becoming a threat to everyone around it. When he asked the woman standing behind him if she had come here to die, she confidently answered no. With pride in her voice, she introduced herself as a warrior, ready to face the Devourer, emphasizing her determination and courage in the face of danger. This encounter opened up a new dimension in the confrontation with the Devourer, showing that there are not only threats in the dungeons, but also an unwavering will to fight. In this episode, the image of a female warrior emerges, who not only refuses death, but is also ready to face evil, inspiring admiration for her courage and fortitude. The Devourer, without concealing his contempt, told the woman that he had not asked for her name, and that her attempt, though valiant, was not sufficient for his victory. Despite his words, she re-entered the battle, showing unwavering determination to defend herself and stop the evil. She tried with all her might to stop him, rushing into battle with unstoppable energy. Attacking again, she struck him with her hand, but on the second attempt, her strike was stopped by contact with the Devourer's hand. "I'm sorry, but being able to hit me was a one-time event," he said, dismissing her attempts as not serious enough. He suggested that she try to escape again if she could, using this as a chance to show her superiority. Holding her hand extremely tightly, he showed that he had no intention of letting her go, establishing control over the situation. She immediately understood that it was impossible to defeat him in this battle, realizing the superiority of the Devourer's strength over her own. However, even knowing her defeat, she could be proud of the fact that she was able to win at least for a while against such a powerful opponent. This event revealed not only the physical strength of the Devourer, but also the moral strength of the female warrior, ready to fight to the end, despite the superiority of the opponent. Aware of her role and destiny, the soldier Christosia with difficulty, but confidently declares her belonging to the soldiers, refusing to give up easily. "I am the warrior Christosia, and I cannot just fall like that. I will not allow you, Devourer, to threaten the citizens of the Empire," she says proudly. With loud screams, she bursts upwards, demonstrating her indomitable strength and will to fight. Trying to break through his defenses, she stabs him in the chest, hoping to knock him back and protect the innocent. The Devourer, recognizing her courage, notes with sadness that although she chose the path of a worthy death, this does not change his intentions. He promises to remember her name forever, although there is a doubt that his words can only be cold comfort before the inevitable end. With no apparent effort, he delivers a powerful punch to her face, emphasizing the power gap between them. The Devourer, recognizing the courage and bravery of Christia, honors her struggle, even in the face of inevitable defeat. His words, although they sound like a confession, carry a cold comfort in them. He promises to remember her name, but his actions suggest otherwise. With ease, without effort, he delivers a powerful blow to her face, emphasizing the superiority of his power and the inevitability of her defeat. Illuminates a deeper moral rift between the steadfast belief in justice and the ruthless reality of power. To honor her steadfast endurance, he decided to end her life painlessly. Standing alone in front of the entire army before him, not daring to attack, they decided to test their fate by sending a young girl to the forefront, who, miraculously, remained alive, barely clinging to the arms of her rescuers. And without delay, he ordered his armies to begin the search. Although time was running out, he decided to appear before the Great Devourer at what seemed like the last moment. A member of the Black Wolf Knight Order, RL saw the all-powerful master of the Devourer for the first time, feeling the weight of the moment. He only called him Lord Devourer, but how he could have known this in advance was a mystery. Coincidentally, one of his subordinates had an ability that allowed him to recognize the Great Devourer, revealing their fate. The Devourer, smiling with a hidden meaning, realized that his moment had come. The Great Devourer had no time for long talks. His time was running out, and he urged the army to attack him as quickly as possible, testing their mettle. At this critical moment, when time was running out, a great battle was about to break out, with an unknown outcome that kept everyone on edge. But the knight explains that there has been a misunderstanding. They do not intend to oppose the Great Devourer, but have come with the hope of negotiations. "You should be more realistic about the situation. Greed only leads to inevitable death," said the Devourer, criticizing the knight's intentions. This meeting, symbolized by the lottery, can guarantee the safety of the Empire, the owner of which is the bearer of the brachycephalic tooth, which miraculously survived. "Looks like you didn't end up here because of a tooth. I'm ready to help you with what you need," he offered, trying to find a peaceful solution. The Devourer hesitates, unsure whether to reject the offer or accept it, pondering the potential consequences. "My goal here is not a tooth. "I have come to destroy humanity," he proudly declared, revealing his true intentions. The Devourer had only one goal in mind, and he had no intention of retreating or changing his course. Only he himself knew about this single goal, and none of those present could even imagine what it entailed. Face to face, the Devourer questioned how they were going to deal with the consequences of their actions. He warned that if they were to avoid their doom, they would have to find a way to overcome the challenges before them. "We need to find the owner of this weapon immediately," the Devourer demanded, indicating the need for action. And without delay, he ordered his armies to begin the search. Warriors ready for self-sacrifice immediately began to help the Devourer in this task. She only needed to look at the weapon to determine its owner's whereabouts. The Devourer warned that if she intentionally said something untrue or absurd, it would cost the lives of everyone present. She silently agreed with him without expressing any objection. There was one person who had many traces of this weapon on him. It was difficult to determine the exact location from afar, but from the time perspective of centuries, this person was moving to the west. If to the west, then in the direction of Haston, a conclusion that brought them closer to the goal. It turned out that the person previously thought dead was still alive, and the Devourer had every chance of finding her. The Devourer's hope for success rekindled, filling him with renewed optimism. He admits to people that he owes them such valuable information, feeling deep gratitude and responsibility. With a request to everyone to disperse, he, wasting no time, hastily sets off forward, full of determination and hope. Delighted, the Demon Queen exclaims to Sir Elder, "You're back!" her voice filled with joy and undisguised surprise. Their return was slightly delayed, but that did not diminish the importance of the moment of their appearance. There were many corpses on the floor, evidence of the brutal battle that had taken place here, leaving behind a shadow of death and destruction. She fulfilled her promise by protecting the teleporter with incredible bravery and courage that deserves the highest recognition. Although her hands were covered in blood, it was a testament to her unwavering commitment and willingness to fight to the end. She tried in vain to convince herself that she owed the Devourer, inventing non-existent debts. These were only fantasies that grew in her head. But she served the Devourer as her king, performing her duties with unsurpassed dignity and devotion. As they looked at the teleporter, they wondered how this marvel of technology could be applied, considering new possibilities and uses. It was necessary to enter the exact coordinates of the thickets and carefully pour some mana, observing all the ritual prescriptions. Suddenly the glass began to crack, creating more and more cracks which portended danger. And so it flew to pieces, and all the liquid flowed out, leaving behind only fragments of its former existence. It seemed that she was completely unable to withstand the mana, being too fragile for such a powerful force. If the Devourer applies Demura's mana containment effect to the teleportation magic, will he be able to teleport without any hindrance? However, for this he will need to reveal his true form, which can become an unexpected advertisement of his power to the whole world. Although he has already caused a lot of events, it will be difficult to finish it all, burdened by the consequences of his actions. But another way out, which would be equally valuable for him, could not be found, challenging him to make a difficult decision. "I'm sorry, Petrick," the Eater said quietly, acknowledging the gravity of the moment and the possible consequences of his actions. As he began to use the energy, everything around him began to fly apart from his power, turning the environment into a scene of chaos and displays of power. Entering the coordinates of the thickets, he activated the tower's wing magic to instantly transport himself there using ancient knowledge and technology. "Welcome to the Tower of Wing Mages." Standing at the meeting, the guard greeted the girl Renie, offering to use the magic of transfer right here. She did not want to go through all these procedures, but the tower was surrounded by a barrier that did not allow her to pass without performing certain rituals. Armed with blades, however, there were no procedures she couldn't bypass. VDJ, her weapons gave her freedom of action. The guard's blood spilled across the ground as she decided to act decisively, not hesitating in the face of challenges in her path. She thought about her first visit here, when all this seemed new and unknown to her. The human mage tower was like a dungeon, a cozy and mystical place created by the hands of those who sought knowledge. These corridors and halls, like a dungeon carved into the rock, created the feeling that you are in another world, where every stone is imbued with magic. As she made her way forward, she saw many guards looking at her with fear in their eyes, sensing her invincible power. She had no choice but to kill anyone who stood in her way, leaving no one alive, and keep moving forward, focused on her goal. These people posed no threat to her. She walked through them mercilessly without compassion or doubt. She destroyed everyone who met her, starting from the first floor, leaving not a single soul alive in her path. And now she faced her final test, the top of the tower where she would face her greatest challenge. "My God, I've been preparing, thinking about what kind of enemies I'll have to face," she mused, but she didn't expect that everything would turn out to be so simple. "But aren't you the noble lady who came earlier? It seems you were not an ordinary person." The opponents were surprised, recognizing something more in her. Her humble dog's grave turned out to be only a mask behind which her true face was hidden, ready to be revealed to her enemies. The woman did not answer Renie's question about where her weapon was. She had no intention of engaging in conversation, feeling only contempt. And now Renie understood all the numbers of her rival, realizing who she really is, a discovery that changed everything. A terrible question rang out from her smelly family. "How did you survive, Renie? How did you manage to stay alive?" Words that caused confusion and reflection in her. "How did you manage to stay alive?" This question sounded in her head like an echo, looking for answers to the tests she passed, confirming her invincibility and endurance. Although it was difficult for Renie to regain consciousness and stand on her feet after the blow she received, she realized who the lady really was and took a fighting stance with unwavering determination. This little girl, despite her age, is ready to fight against the leader of the Mage Guild, showing courage that seems boundless. The guild leader, underestimating Renie, thought that a fight with her would be like a normal skirmish for him, confident in his superiority. Having created a magical shield in front of her, the guild authorities confidently claimed that her defense was impenetrable, and Renie would not be able to overcome it without her weapon. However, Renie pulls off the incredible feat of breaking through the shield with a single punch, showing that her strength and skill are beyond expectations. Realizing that the tower is built on a mana source, Renie realizes that she can win by using all the mana flowing here to her advantage. The question rang out again. "Where's my gun?" VDJ creating tension in the air and strengthening Renie's determination to find out the truth. Renie, mustering all her will, demands an answer, threatening the witch, who seems to know more than she's letting on. "I'm sorry, the brachycephalic tooth is no longer here. It was sent to the auction," the witch replies, revealing the unpleasant truth about the fate of Renie's weapon. The realization that her weapon has been lost prompts Renie to find new powers and solutions to use her surroundings and available mana to defeat her enemy, turning desperation into a new path to victory. Power uses his incredible ability to summon a magical dimension where forces unknown to the ordinary world rule. The lady shows extraordinary confidence in her strokes that know no bounds. She enters the battle at full strength using the Spear of Longinus. Using skills such as Acceleration Chase and Sacred Knight Disposition, she achieves incredible speed in battle. "Renie, we can't just give up when we're dealing with such a powerful enemy," she reasoned, preparing for a determined resistance. An explosion rings out on the top floor of the tower, marking the beginning of the climax of the battle. Blood flows from the girl. She does not feel her body pierced by 7 copies. Despair and pain in every movement. Most dungeon bosses would not be able to withstand this magic. They would be powerless before its power. Such a little girl like Renie will 100% not be able to withstand this blow, the opponent thought confidently, underestimating the strength of her opponent. But unexpectedly for the enemy, everything did not go as she planned. Her hands fly away from her body due to an unknown magical force. In this moment, it becomes clear that Renie has something unusual, an ability that exceeds expectations and can change the course of the battle. Although it was difficult for Renie to regain consciousness and stand on her feet after the blows she received, she realized who the lady really was and took a fighting stance with unwavering determination. This little girl, despite her age, is ready to fight against the leader of the Mage Guild, showing courage that seems boundless. The guild leader, underestimating Renie, thought that a fight with her would be like a normal skirmish for him, confident in his superiority. Having created a magical shield in front of her, the guild authorities confidently claimed that her defense was impenetrable, and Renie would not be able to overcome it without her weapon. However, Renie pulls off the incredible feat of breaking through the shield with a single punch, showing that her strength and skill are beyond expectations. Realizing that the tower is built on a mana source, Renie realizes that she can win by using all the mana flowing here to her advantage. The question rang out again. "Where's my gun?" VDJ creating tension in the air and strengthening Renie's determination to find out the truth. Renie, mustering all her will, demands an answer, threatening the witch, who seems to know more than she's letting on. "I'm sorry, the brachycephalic tooth is no longer here. It was sent to the auction," the witch replies, revealing the unpleasant truth about the fate of Renie's weapon. The realization that her weapon has been lost prompts Renie to find new powers and solutions to use her surroundings and available mana to defeat her enemy, turning desperation into a new path to victory. Holding the lady, the assistant tries to find out if she has the strength to fight for her life, asking her questions despite her condition. Unexpectedly, the assistant pleads to stand up and kill Renie, showing her loyalty to the guild leader but also revealing her own powerlessness to act on her own. This big man, although he looks strong, is actually unable to act decisively, relying on others. Renie, lying against the wall, can barely feel her body from fatigue, gathering the last strength to realize what is happening around. The assistant takes out the item and hands it to the leader, hoping that she will recognize this magical artifact. The leader of the guild, faced with an unfamiliar stone, cannot understand its purpose and the power hidden in it. This stone of advanced magic could be the key to solving their situation, but the assistant lacks the magic to activate it on his own. Now they both need to combine their powers and mana to use the stone to its full potential. Renie, watching this scene, realizes that in front of her is a stone of love, an artifact that she has already met in her life. At the last moment, the assistant presses the stone to her forehead, hoping for a miracle that can save Renie, demonstrating an unusual combination of magic and compassion at the heart of the conflict. Using her mana, Renie feels an otherworldly energy infuse her, filling her with new strength and confidence. Amber had made many enemies, and it seemed that revenge from Renie was only a matter of time, although it was not part of her plans at first. Even Amber's family, realizing the depth of her crimes, asked the assistant to use any convenient opportunity to get rid of her. Back at Mistress Ren, the assistant asks if she really supports everything that's going on, looking to her for an ally or approval. As a sign of gratitude for the work done, which he himself should have done, the assistant bows low to Renie, acknowledging her merits. However, the assistant realizes that by leaving Renie unsupervised, he risks becoming her next target, prompting him to be cautious. Deciding to change his strategy, he transforms into something incomprehensible, demonstrating his true capabilities in front of the girl. He needs time to find a way out of this situation, as a direct confrontation with Renie could have unpredictable consequences. Due to an injury sustained in battle, Renie's right eye is almost blind, a physical testament to the hard struggle she has endured. Having lost almost all vision in her right eye, Renie faced a new challenge. This physical injury not only added pain and inconvenience to her, but also became a test of her spirit and will to win. This was not the kind of opponent that she could overcome with such injuries as she had at that moment, and with mediocre weapons in her hands. However, she was stronger in spirit. Her unshakable character forced her to gather her last strength for a decisive step. Would she really dare to use her hand to hide her scent from a voracious enemy? If she was destined to die, she chose to meet her end with dignity, aiming her blow straight into the monster's eye. However, her well-aimed move was blocked as the tentacle knocked the little girl back. There was only one idea in Ren's mind that filled her mind completely. She wondered if her enemy, the Devourer himself, would miss her knowing that she no longer existed in this world. Does he realize that she is dead and will not come back to life, having left this world forever? The Devourer appears above the mage's tower, revealing his true, formidable nature, striking terror into the hearts of those who see him. At this crucial moment, when two destinies collide, the question of the true value of life and death, love and loss, courage and sacrifice emerges. When she was rescued the first time, the situation was strangely similar. The circumstances tested her to the limit, when both soul and body were at the limit of endurance, and she herself could not find a reason to